the day one of the Sustaining Impact Summit, the 6th edition. My name, of course, is Dr. Adeyemi Adelekon. I'm the director of the African Social Enterprise Workshop, ASEW, that is convening this summit. The African Social Enterprise Workshop, which is ASEW, is a technical support platform. So on that platform, we do run trainings for different training for social enterprises, NGOs, or any purpose-driven businesses on the African continent. What we usually do is we draw more on industry expertise, experts in the industry, but also experts in the academic sector to come and share knowledge on the platform with social entrepreneurs, NGOs, anybody working in the impact space, on different kind of topics. Usually we focus on 3 core areas: enterprise creation, because the whole idea of social entrepreneurship to us is that while we have the social elements there, you also have that enterprise element there, the economic element, the commercial element. So we do bring experts that can speak on different aspects of enterprise creation, different aspects like marketing, finance, HR, and all of those different component parts of what it needs, what it takes to run a business. But we also have started to run trainings on enterprising skills development, things like how to network, things like communications skills, presentation skills, how to pitch, and all of these different things, different soft skills. We do run trainings on those as well. But we also run trainings on external support mastery. So how to gain external supports like crowdfunding, most importantly, how to seek for funding, to write a proposal, how to pitch to a funder, and all of these different trainings we do run on the platform. So I'm sure a lot of you in the attendee list knows the website, but if you don't, it is www.asewworkshop.com. You can go on there, join the mailing list so that we can always inform you when we have a training coming up, and sign you up for those trainings. But then, as you usually run these summer edition events every summer, usually around July, August, where we gather a range of experts to speak to a particular theme. And we've been doing that for 5 years now. And this is sort of the 6th year we're doing this. It is this year that we decided to name it the Sustaining Impact Summit, simply because we kind of see that is kind of like a major gap in this industry, in the impact space. While we all think a lot about creating impact, I think there is a huge gap there in terms of understanding how to sustain that impact that we create. I mean, we all know it's a very big challenge. It's easy for you to start an impact work, but keeping it going for the first, second, third, fourth year, we all know how challenging that is. I mean, a quick statistics that I pull up from, I think it's from the World Economic Forum, was like, they surveyed about 115 social enterprises in one of the developing countries, and they found out that only 38.3% of them survived less than 1 year. Out of 115. I mean, it's a very small sample size, but it can kind of give you an indication of what is happening in this space. In just less than 1 year, only 38% is left. Survived that. The rest, 45.2% lasted between 1 to 3 years, and so on and so forth. And so we know that sustaining this thing is the issue, sustaining the impact, keeping it going. And that is why we decided to create this summit to sort of speak to that issue of how can we ensure that in Africa specifically, because we operate in a challenging context, all of you will probably agree with me. And if running a social enterprise is hard in the UK or hard in the US or hard in other developed parts of the world, I think we can all agree that it's even harder running a social enterprise where you are juggling between commercial purpose with commercial objective with social objectives and even environmental objectives. We know it's even harder there. I mean, just because of a whole lot of things that we don't have to talk about, like institutional stability, infrastructural gaps, and mindset issues. There are a lot of different issues that are surrounding that. So it makes it imperative, therefore, for us to start to think as Africans that how can we create a lot of impact every day, but it's about how can we sustain that? There's a lot of you in the room today are running 1 or 2 different types of enterprises, whether that is in the area of giving to somebody or sharing knowledge, or it's in the area of maybe creating an ecosystem to enable people, operate and organize for sustainability. Whatever area of impact you are in, I'm sure keeping it going is one of the issues you face every day. And this is why we've set up this summit. And today we are focusing on one of the biggest issues in sustaining impact. That is resource, understanding resources and how to resource your impact work. And we are so lucky this year to have amazing experts in the room today. All of them you can see on the panelist side that are going to help us understand this issue a bit more and also share tips and strategies from their respective work on how to what type of resources do you need as a social enterprise? What type of resources are crucial? Where can you find these resources? Especially in Africa, where some people think it's a resource constrained setting or resource scarce setting. I don't really believe in all those terminologies we use in academia sometimes, but I mean, we do say that. I think we're actually very blessed with the resources. I think, but anyway, I will leave that to the panelists to discuss during the panel discussions. But we have experts in the room today, and we are very thankful to all of them for making our time for this session today. But also, we want to thank all of the partners that have made this what it is right now. All of the partners, about 19 to 20 of them that are supporting this Impact Summit this year. We want to say a very big thank you to you. We see you, we feel you, we appreciate you all. Yes, thank you. And also to the team. I mean, I've got to also thank my team. I mean, I will leave this to the end as well, but my team has been amazing. So well done to all of you. So let's hope the technology does not start to mess us up again, and that this goes well and everybody gain what they need to get from it. And lastly, to the attendees, thank you. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you find this very useful. Please don't really worry too much about not seeing yourself. The chat room is there. Use it, engage, introduce yourself. Let us meet you. Let us know you. There will be opportunities for you to ask questions. Please feel free to chip in as well. Okay. I think I should bring this to a wrap now to allow our first set of speaker to come in. So the way the session will go today will be, there will be first two keynote speakers who will be starting the session, opening the session for us today. Mrs. Ichoto and Dr. Natalie. And then we are going to have our first panel discussion that will be coming up right after that, where that will be focusing on something very interesting. I think I like that. I love the panel discussions we have this year. Resource scarcity, inefficiency, or limited awareness. Where is our issue? Where is our issue in Africa? Is it the fact that we don't have those resources, or is it that we are very inefficient in managing them, or is it the fact that we don't even know what we have? I love it. I can't wait for that session. And Chembo here will be moderating that session. And we have all our panelists, I believe, in the house, or they will be joining us later. Then after that, we will be having a mindfulness exercise, which our amazing team member, Rita, who happens to love to work in the mindfulness and, all this mental health space. She will be taking us through a very short mindfulness exercise just to help us ease out a little bit from the serious work. And then we get back into the session again with another set of two keynote speakers from Dr. Jonas here and also Willem. So again, a very fantastic lineup of talks there. You don't want to miss it. And we will have a short introduction from one of our partners who is going to introduce you to a verification process they've set up for social enterprises. That will be very useful for you in the room today, for you to know about. I think she will be here later, if she's not here already, to speak for just 5 minutes, explaining that verification process. And then we'll have a second very interesting panel discussion looking very broadly at the state of this ecosystem itself in Africa. What is the state of that ecosystem in terms of helping out with these resources or getting these resources into the hands of the people that need them? What is that state? How have we progressed over the years? Where are the gaps? Where are the potentials? And how can we start to chart the right future in order for us to be able to resource ourselves and be less dependent on resources from, external, we will always welcome it, but to be less dependent on it. So this will be interesting again. I can't wait for that. And we have our moderator, Annie Akbe, who I'm not sure if she's here, but she'll probably be joining us later as well. And a range of panel discussants there that are very interesting as well. So, and then we will be closing the session after those two interesting panel discussions. So thank you very much for everybody that have listened to me thus far. I will now open the summit. It's now officially open. So welcome officially to everyone again. So let's go to the first set of keynotes. Do we have Mrs. Ichoto in the house? Oh, yes. Mrs.
Hi,
Ichoto, can we hear you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. And we can see you as well. Right. Thank you and welcome. All right. So let me do a quick, I'm not going to read the whole profile. I'm very sure. Please head over to our website, go to the summit page on our website, and you can click on the speakers option, and then you'll be able to even read about all the speakers yourself, read about our profile yourself. But I will just read just a brief, a bit of their profile, and then you kind of get a sense of who is speaking to you today. So Mrs. Ichoto Echakara is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya of over 16 years experience. She has over 16 years experience. She holds a Master of Law in Drafting Legislation, Regulation and Policy from the University of London. She's a fellow of the Commonwealth Scholarship, and she equally serves as a certified secretary, accredited professional mediator, and enterprise development agent. Over the course of her experiential years, she has worked in the private sector, in government, in non-governmental organizations as well. And then, there are so many different sectors that she has worked in, like the agriculture sector coordination unit, and also the state law office as a state counsel in the then Ministry of Cooperative Development and Marketing Legal Department. So loaded a profile. And the title of our talk, okay, well, I don't have it in the agenda here, so I will leave that for her to introduce herself, but I will hand over now to Mrs. Itoto. Please, we are very short on time. You have 15 minutes, and please, we will be texting you when the time is almost over. So over to you, Mrs. Itoto. Please take us away.
Thank you, Adeyemi. Hello, everybody. Thank you for that introduction. My topic is navigating the policy and legislative frameworks for social enterprises. That's the topic that I had landed on, and I am sure it will fit in with your discussions on resources, because we know policy and legislation does have an effect on an ability on social enterprises. But then I would ask you to allow me to switch off my video, because I would be referring to notes back and forth. And I have a bit of a visual challenge, so I wouldn't want to disorient people by moving back and forth. So allow me to switch off my video, but I'll leave my audio. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. So I've structured my topic around three broad areas, and the first area would be historical context, which would be laying a foundation. It's good to understand where maybe social enterprises come from, and I relied heavily on a paper by a Mr. John Restakis. If anyone can find that, I found it in the archives, but he did explain a lot about the historical context. For those who already are aware of the topic, it's going to be a highly summarized. The next topic would be public policy and legislation, and then general issues emerging on public policy and legislation on issues of social enterprises. So my first topic on historical context, as I was reading, I found out that social enterprises are an outcome of the social economy. I'm not an expert in this area and haven't been in this field, so it was interesting to read up and find out the history. And it was an outcome of the social economy, which the social economy was as a reaction to the classical economic view, which means that economic behavior is about rational choice and maximizing self-benefit. So the social economics proponents, who were varied over time, were arguing that no, it's not just maximizing benefit. There are other influences that influences a person's economic choices and wealth creation. So there was history and discussions around what then a social economy is versus what the classical economic view was, and they had been really looking at what the definitions are, and they've been coming up with the definition of social economy over time. So one of the definitions that I found about the social economy is that it is about it's about social goals and community goals through commercial activities. So ultimately, that's what the social economy is about. It's about resolving various issues in the society, whereas the economic view did not resolve those issues. I mean, there was a lot of failure in that context. People are insisting on feeling that no, there are social issues that influence etc. etc. So then two perspectives arose, I understand. One perspective was that the social economy is exclusively a unique market. And then the second perspective that I saw was that, well, the social economy is part of still the larger market. And I'm hoping people then also understand about economics or a bit of economics. And so as time went on, there were still discussions and there were influences. And one influence that I saw was the neoliberal attitude, which then pushed social economy towards a bit of the classical economic view on, they were talking about utilitarian and economic purposes. So as a result of that, social enterprises arose as a result of that, because the US adopted that approach and Canada adopted that approach. And that approach then gave the rise of the definition of some of the social enterprises. For example, for the US, they define social enterprise as a revenue-generating non-profit activities that are meant to serve social or community purposes. So that is the definition that also Canada adopted, and I would presume that is also a lot of the definition for social enterprises across the globe may have. But because of the nature of social economics, there were various organizations that emerged. These are cooperatives, these are mutuals, these are credit unions, these are social enterprises. So there is a variety of organizations that arose as a result of those definitions and the different influences and directions that people had. So the challenge with the definition, though, was, again, different views. There was one view that felt, no, if we have an actual definition, it will limit the scope and application of our organizations. And I'm sure many people feel that. But for another view, they said social enterprises and social economy is just simply another term for non-profits. So that history is the one that has influenced the emergence of social enterprises. And I'm sure many of you can see or begin seeing why then there is all kinds of issues as a result of that. Now, the issue of definition, there's not been any universal definition, but what they have come up with are principles of what social economy and by extension social enterprises have. They are founded on values of solidarity, autonomy, and citizenship. And their principles are about four: that the primary goal is service to members of the community, those autonomous management, that's self-governance, democratic decision-making, and the primacy of persons and work over capital and redistribution of wealth or money, which is slightly antithetical to the economic principle of distribution of wealth is exclusive. So because of those principles, most social enterprises have those values and have those principles that are embodied, whichever way you look at it. Cooperatives, they have self-governance, they have group decision-making, etc., etc. So because of that, then social enterprises then have challenges in terms of coming up with a full-on definitions. There are definitions that I saw here and there, but because of the different feelings and views of different proponents, then there's no clear definition. But you can work with the principles and values for social enterprises, which is a result of social economy, which is a branch of economics. So the lack of definition poses a number of challenges. A challenge that it poses, some of the challenges that they pose include the inability to collect data and use data for measuring anything. It is not easy to pursue claims or policies. It is also not very easy to understand the subject. And I think that resonates with, I'm sure, many of the participants as they pursue the social enterprises. I know when I was engaging with the social enterprises in Kenya, one of the challenges they had was trying to describe who they are to, for example, government officials. Again, that is as a result of the history and the background. So the next topic I'll cover is public policy and legislation. So it is important because policy and legislation are political processes. So it is important for the SC sector to understand that. And I'm sure many do understand, and I'm sure are already involved in that. But it is important so that you're able to, the SC sector is able to further the issues and the interests that affect this SC sector. And then also to be able to engage adequately. So that's one. Both policy and legislation does comprise scope and application of who, what, why, and how. So both the policy process and legislative process always cover who, the what, the why, and how. For public policy, the definition that I like using is that it's a response to an emerging issue or problem in society by government. So for example, the environmental concern, the climate change, that's a concern, that's an emerging issue. And the governments have concerns. So at global level and at individual country level, they have created various responses. But some of them are legislative, meaning they passed various laws dealing with some of those aspects of environment. For example, carbon markets, for example, polluter pays principles. Those are some of the things that have been passed as legislation, or they've also passed environmental policies as well. So it is the government, so public policy is the government response to an emerging issue. So for the social enterprise sector, because they are varied and they are diverse and deal with diverse issues, again, social, community, economic goals, which are very diverse. The thing that then SC sector would need to think about is what specific issues is the SC sector dealing with? So for example, if you're in the environmental sector, what are the issues you're dealing with? Has the government already resolved it, or is it in the process? You need to find out, and then you also need to engage. Maybe you can enhance that or not. Then the other is the legislation. Basically, legislation implements policy responses, the policy goals. Whatever the government decided, the action, legislation comes in to implement those objectives, which usually involves penalties, meaning then they create offenses around something, and then there's a penalty, which means then you're sentenced. So for example, with the environmental, if you pollute and it's against the law, then you'll be arrested. Or for example, or the other is for you to be able to carry out some sort of activity, there must be an environmental impact assessment done to see the extent to which that activity will affect the people. So such has been included in legislation. And again, with legislation, it caters to who are the people involved, or who will the law apply to, what exactly is the law going to be dealing with, that is the activities or actions, and then how. So the different mechanisms, which is licensing, for example, is the how. Maybe you're required to do an assessment, which is included. That's a how, for example. So that's how legislation works. And so for the social enterprise sector or group, you need to then engage at both those levels, because then you'd be able to advance your issues. Which takes me to the last point on what are the emerging issues. So as I was looking through some of the material, there were a few broad issues that I found that consistently came up. One is legal recognition. Does the government identify you, social enterprises, as a body or as an organization? Now, the issue with that is because they're diverse, then there could be an existing legal framework. So for example, in Kenya, you have a law on cooperatives. So if you're an SE that deals with cooperatives, then that would be a framework that you're bound by. And so now the question would be, do you want to be bound by that, or do you want to have something more? So legal recognition is an issue that emerges in terms of policy and in terms of legislation. As I had mentioned, it was difficult for our SEs to be able to describe to government who they are. Another issue that came up, and I think this speaks to this specific conference, is access to finance. Again, depending on your definition of a social enterprise, because you're both nonprofit and business, a lot of the times each government regulates both, either as a nonprofit or as a business. So a hybrid or a mix of the two then poses a number of challenges, which then means then there can be difficulty in access to finance. For example, going to a bank and asking. However, there are some things that can be considered. Again, creating institutions that can cater to the finance needs of the particular organization. Cooperatives. In Kenya, we have savings and credit cooperatives. These are financial institutions that lend money to different individuals as members of cooperatives. For example, we have microfinance institutions. So maybe social enterprises can think about creating some of these organizations, and then where then they can provide financing. Another option would be, since we have the carbon credit markets, maybe that's something that, again, SE can think about. How then do we engage that so that we can get investors into our work, so that we get financing, etc., etc. Another issue that emerges, policy and legislation, is tax and taxation. Again, this goes to the nature or the type of organization. Most nonprofits or NGOs are tax exempt. Businesses have different regimes in terms of tax, corporate tax, value-added tax, etc., etc. So again, that's something that is broad and broad-based. However, it's something that the SE sector can engage with, so that then they can, go and propose the types of taxes that they can be exempted from, etc., etc. Again, that's an issue that they can look at. The other issue that comes up is market access.
Sorry, Mrs. Toto, because we're running a bit out of time.
Okay. Okay.
So sorry. Yeah, but I will let you just wrap up.
That's fine.
With your concluding point.
Yes. Okay. So market access, again, you can look into creating a whole stock exchange or a portion of the stock exchange. And finally, advocacy. SE and SE sectors must engage in advocacy to create awareness and sensitize people on who and what to do, but also to participate in policies and legislation in the different fields and diverse areas. So for me, that is what I thought I would present, and I hope it provokes further conversation. Thank you, Adeyemi.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think that is it's a good start to this summit. It's a very powerful point, especially on this policy perspective. It's one of the key areas that has been highlighted by participants that they want to know more about, and I'm glad that you touched on some of those key areas. I believe there will be questions, but we will not take them now. We'll move straight to the next keynote because, again, we are trying to manage our time today. So I can see Dr. Natalie is here. Good to see you. So let me bring Dr. Natalie in. Mrs. Itoto, if you could stay for Dr. Natalie's presentation, that would be very helpful so that we then take combined question from your presentation and also Dr. Natalie for about 5 to 10 minutes. Is that okay with you, Mrs. Itoto?
That's fine, I'm here.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let me bring in Dr. Natalie, who is our next keynote. She's very famously known as Dr. Tali. She is the Chief of Staff at the Simba Group, which is an East African conglomerate spanning across hospitality, energy, telecom, real estate, agriculture, higher education, and philanthropy. She's also the founder of Mosana Cart, which is a social enterprise building solar-powered street food vending carts, and HER, which is a capital HER, an online mentorship platform for young African women. She has been recognized by Forbes 30 Under 30, the World Bank, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the World Economic Forum as a business leader and innovator. She has an honorary doctorate, hence why we refer to her as Dr. Tali. And she's also the chair of the Save the Children Africa Advisory Board and serves on various boards and councils promoting youth and women empowerment. That's just a short summary of our profile or our bio. You can read more on our website, as I've indicated earlier. So Dr. Tali will be speaking to us today about the topic. I finally got all the topics together now. So she will be speaking on beyond the bottom line, building businesses with a purpose. That is going to be very exciting, and I believe you'll find it interesting. Dr. Tali, over to you now.
Hi, I'm going to share my screen so I can take you through some slides really quickly. It's my pleasure to be here.
Who wants to speak? You can use the raise hand button, or you could type in the chat room and then we could call you. Anybody has any question? Oh, for the first speaker. Okay. All right. So let's bring in Alexander then to ask Mrs. Itoto very briefly, and then we go to Dr. Natalie's presentation. So let's allow Alexander to talk. So Alex, you can unmute yourself now and you can talk.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I asked the question already. So from what you presented, I think that's been one of the bane of social enterprises in the continent, Africa. So from your opinion, what will you suggest to be the most appropriate pathway that these social enterprises should take? And how do we lobby governments to look at it from that perspective? Because as you said, not all of them can be cooperatives. Not all of them can be limited liability companies. Social enterprises have these unique. So what would be your major proposition for us, and for what role do you see us playing to be able to see that at least in the continent we can have social enterprises falling within the spaces that they are supposed to be when it comes to the legal and then regulatory company frameworks? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Mrs. Itoto, very briefly, if you can respond to that very briefly.
What I usually advise is for the sector or whichever organization is to sit and review and look at what makes sense for them. For example, I've looked at different countries and their responses. Some countries have decided to come up with an entirely new legislation defining social enterprises. Others have enhanced the legislation. Others have decided to just go the policy way and have government, create actions or strategies around social enterprises, but it's for the specific sector. And if this is in Africa, they'll need to sit down and agree, this is who we are, or broadly who we are. Remember, I will refer you to the principles of social economics and values. That then can be a guide. It needs to be a discussion. Both processes, public policy and legislation processes, are processes that take time. So you don't need to rush into it. But in the meanwhile, it doesn't mean that you cannot engage as you currently are. I hope I've answered.
Alex, there will still be a bit of time after Dr. Tali's presentation, in case you want to ask other questions related to that. But Mrs. Dodo, there's also a lot of questions, I believe, in the chat room for you. If you maybe you can go through the chat and maybe start typing to those responses, pending the time that we can allow one or two people to ask, if that is okay with you as well. Okay, Dr. Tali, I can see your screen is working now. Do you want to take over?
Got it there at last. Thank you for bearing with me. So it's my pleasure and honor to be here. Always wonderful to speak to fellow social entrepreneurs on the continent. So I wanted us to talk about the different aspects of building business with a purpose. I think this summit has been very timely and is very useful. And what I like to do is make sure that the information we're sharing is useful and practical and applicable. And of course, we'll have Q&A at the end. So just briefly, oh, am I in Zoom now? Here we go. As Ademi explained, I'm Dr. Natalie, a social entrepreneur. I work as chief of staff in my family business, and I'm also a performance coach. I work mostly with women entrepreneurs. Over the span of my career, I always say that I'm really just chief of problem solving because I use the same skill set and I can apply it in different sectors. That's why I'm able to work in different businesses and different organizations without being a jack of all trades. It's really the same work, just applying it in different areas. So I'm not a technical expert in, let's say, hospitality or in solar energy, but I'm able to work with the experts to make sure that things are coordinated and move forward. It's been an honor to be a social entrepreneur. It's a journey I began in my 20s. When I was first working in Uganda after studying in the UK, I was working in a real estate firm, and I started to get frustrated because there were so many ups and downs in a business. And once you learn how to run a business and how to make sure businesses are profitable, what more are you doing? And that was a big burning question for me. Having grown up in a family of entrepreneurs and been in and out of different businesses from the time I was a teenager, I thought there has to be more than this. My father always says all African businesses are social businesses because you're empowering the community, you're helping people pay their school fees, you're putting infrastructure that wasn't there previously. So he said, you don't need to study this, you're already doing it. But I insisted, I said, there must be formal systems and structures, best practices, other people who are doing this. I want to know what they're doing in different countries. So I went to do a master's in social entrepreneurship and I moved to San Francisco. And it was really, really an enlightening year where I got to meet a lot of people who had different experiences running social businesses and wanting to improve how business is done all over the world. So there's so many projects now and innovations and policies even, like things like B-Lab in America and the US, where they're trying to bring in legislation, best practices, and structures for businesses to be social businesses so that we can start to also grow to the point where one day, hopefully, all businesses will be social businesses. So resources, that is one of the biggest things. I think all entrepreneurs struggle with this, especially African entrepreneurs, and now especially social entrepreneurs. So I think if you break it down, when you're raising funds, what they always say, what I've been taught, is at first you have to use your own savings because you have to have skin in the game, right? You have to show you've also sacrificed and that you believe in this business and it means so much to you. If you have none of your own money, why should someone else give you some money? And then the next round of the funding is friends, family, and fools. Those are the people who are ready to give you some money just because they like you and they want to give you a chance. They won't break your legs if you don't return the money. So you tell a good story, you tell them how you've saved, what your business could be, they give you something. You really should endeavor to pay them back because that also builds financial discipline and will help with your reputation later in the business. But businesses are tough. And this is to get you through the first few stages where you're really just trying to prove the concept make sure you have the right target audience, and know your go-to-market strategy. So that's what happens in the beginning. Once you've grown past that, you can now start looking at more commercial things. Grant applications are great. Accelerator or incubator programs are great because you get support as well as financing. And I would suggest you go through that process with grants or an incubator or accelerator before you look at commercial money like debt, because that process will make you get organized about your business, have all your paperwork in order. At this stage, you're legally registered, you're working with regulatory authorities, you know your suppliers, your customers, you have all your stakeholders, you understand what you're doing. To get through that kind of a process, you're now formalized as a business. That's what you should do before you take on any kind of debt or equity, before you're bringing in formal investors. That's where you need to get your business at. So now when it comes to managing resources, my African brothers and sisters, we really shoot ourselves in the foot here, unfortunately. The money is there. The money is so much. These international organizations will come into Africa with so much money, with all these wonderful dreams and goals. Oh, the youth, the future is bright. And they struggle to give us money. And it's so frustrating because there's so many people who have abused the money, abused the system. The corruption is rampant. Even in the big organizations that audit now, recently here in Uganda, the audit firm was fired from MasterCard Foundation because they were also now corrupt. It's very embarrassing and it's very challenging. And I urge you not to be part of the old system. Just because others are doing it doesn't mean you should also do it. That grant money won't finish. These countries are under obligation in their laws to provide aid. And how they distribute it is now where you have big companies like MasterCard Foundation or USAID dispensing the money. But don't make it harder for them. We should be making it easier. Be ethical, have proper monitoring and evaluation. As social entrepreneurs, you actually want the project to succeed. You're not trying to eat the money and have a party with it. So I suggest you really, really take it seriously. Do an online M&E course. Understand, ask questions, know why they make the systems the way that they do. Understand having different bids or different suppliers, not employing your relatives. There's specific reasons that they have these policies. There is your needs, and then there's what is possible. Find a middle ground without going to an unethical situation. Because once you're blacklisted, it becomes very difficult for you for the rest of your career. And yet, if you're one of their top performers, they will continue to give you money for free. And if you can get through that kind of process with the grants, then you're even going to become attractive to investors. Hold your own standard for integrity, as much as it is difficult in our climates, with our corruption, with our pressure, with the poverty around us all. Stand and don't fall to temptation, as easy as it might seem. We have to do better as a collective. We don't want them to get to the point where they're like, we have to stop giving Africans money. There's no point. They just misuse it. And we can't keep having to wait for foreigners to use that money in Africa on our behalf. We are not children. And until we start to behave like adults, we will not be treated like adults. So it's something that we need to work towards as a collective. The other part of managing resources, I think, is also understanding money is not the only resource. There are many other types of resources. And as an entrepreneur, you need access to all of them. You need support from all of them. And you need sustainability with all of them. You need a network. You need time and energy physically in your body. You need the right ideas. You need to be in the right places. And managing resources means you don't use it up today and it's gone tomorrow. That's a short-term mindset. And you can't be an entrepreneur with a short-term mindset. You need to think about, how is this business going to last? Where will we be next quarter, next year, in 5 years, in 10 years? How am I going to make sure these resources are stretched to the maximum? Not that we got a grant, we all give ourselves high salaries, and in 2 months we are broke again. See how to manage your resources, how to cultivate relationships, to sustain your network, how to make sure you're physically healthy so that you have the energy to get up every day and go and fight for that business. Manage your resources. Think about it strategically. Think about it every quarter. Write it down. Ask for advice. Make sure you have a mentor. Make sure you're not squandering what you've been given, because it's not easy to get. And you have to make it go as far as you can, because as a social entrepreneur, the impact of your work and of your business is very, very high. It's not just a regular business. It's not just one employee you have to fire if you mismanage something. There's a greater impact in the community that you've made with your stakeholders. The last thing I would say is have an owner's eye. As the entrepreneur yourself, you cannot have an employee mindset. You can't go home at 5 and say, oh, well, it was a bad day. We shall pick it up tomorrow and sleep peacefully. That's just not how it works. And that's not an attitude I would encourage. You have to have radical responsibility, full on accountability. Everything is your fault. Everything is your problem. That's the only way your business is going to sustain and move past 2, 3, 5, 10 years. Everything is your problem as the owner. That's what should be keeping you up at night. I'm not saying don't sleep, but I'm saying don't wait for someone else to solve your problems. You see like tweets about how the government has to fix this, so the government needs to solve that. You can't ever have that attitude as an entrepreneur. Everything is your problem. Even things the government should be doing or your stakeholders should be managing. Are you going to sit there and say, oh, the government didn't do it, so I'm just going to park the business and wait for 3 years? Whenever they do it, then I'll start the business again. You can't. You pivot, you adjust, you find a new way, you make a new contact, you find who's going to open this door for you. You have to have that owner's eye. You have to notice. You have to see things that are coming ahead. Keep appraised. Read about your sector, your industry. Who are the big players? What are the new innovations? What are the policies and the laws? So that you're not shocked one day when they change something or there's a new opportunity or a competitor opens up. You should never be surprised by stuff happening in your own industry. Make sure you go, even use your social media. Go on Facebook or Instagram and follow all the companies like yours, the ones in India, the ones in China, the ones in South Africa, the ones in Kenya, and see what are we all doing in our sector. Make sure you keep appraised because that's what's going to keep you ahead. Storytelling is an important aspect of entrepreneurship because human beings relate to other human beings. We all need inspiration. We all need motivation. And it's how we connect as people. It's how we understand. You paint a picture. You understand what another person is going through. So I think with a business, your brand and your reputation are so important. So you need to craft the story around that. Be proactive about it. Have a narrative. What kind of entrepreneur are you? What kind of business is this? Do people know your business is a social business and know the impact that your business is having? Because they should, because that's something that's going to encourage them as customers, as partners. And it's important that you keep doing that, not just for sales, but for inspiration, for your community, for your growth. Your brand and your reputation enters rooms before you do. So someone should be talking about you and how great you are and how amazing your business is before they've even interacted with you. That's the person who's going to give you an opportunity. When there's a grant committee in Geneva sitting and they've never met you, they better have glowing reviews. Someone has said this, there's testimonials, I've heard of them, they're doing great work. That's what your brand and reputation does for you. When you're up against a competitor, when pressure is tight, they should know, no, let me go with this business because I've heard that what they're doing in their community is impacting all the mothers, not just making money. So there's so many small things that telling a good story can do that is advantageous to you and also can inspire someone else, someone from your village, someone from your sector, someone who thought that they couldn't do it or they didn't know it was possible. And then they'll also get up and start moving. And then that's how we all move forward. That's why I say it's not about you. Sometimes for me, it's awkward to do these interviews, presentations, speaking engagements. You're tired, you look bad, you don't know what you're going to say. Are you really an expert on this topic? But I always have to remember it's not for me that I do these things. Because someone somewhere far away one day will hear one line I said or something I did, and it will give them the courage or the inspiration or the permission that they needed to do something for themselves. And for me, that's what makes it worth it. So that someone else can get up and say, let me try this, let me push, let me do this for myself, my community, for my mother, for my work, for my child. And that's what's going to get them to push it. So make sure you tell your own stories. Don't be shy about it. Don't be shameful about it. And no story is perfect. Failure is there along the way. Everyone has their struggles. Everyone has their challenges. Don't think about the shiny parts that you see on Instagram. Everyone has gone through it, the ups and downs. But sharing that is relatable and it shows other people that despite the ups and downs, all the challenges that you face, you can keep going and you can get to a better place and you can get to a place where now others are also asking you, how did you reach there? So I encourage you to really get your stories out there. And finally, impact, which I think is what connects us all. Impact is something that as a social entrepreneur, it's something driven inside you. It's a passion, it's a purpose, it's motivation, and it's something that is pushing you to do work that is harder than other people's work. So with impact, I think what's important is to have impact metrics. Do your theory of change. Know the process that you're going through. Because in life, That which is measured is improved. You don't say I'm losing weight without weighing yourself often, right? You don't say I'm making sales without knowing how many sales you're making. So make sure you track your impact. Don't just say I'm a social business, I'm good for the community. How do you know? Does that community even appreciate you? They might be there complaining you're putting all these billboards and saying you're doing all of this, but us, we're not happy with you. Make sure you measure your impact, track it. What are the lives you're actually changing? What is the impact you're trying to make? Don't just say we're making the world a better place. It's a wonderful thing to say, but you have to be authentic. You have to walk the talk. Make sure you have qualitative and quantitative information. Make sure you have metrics. Know what you're tracking every month. How many did we push? How many did we save? How many did we sell? How many did we clear? How much did we organize? What events did we have? How many lives did we touch? How many people were inspired or supported or funded through us? Track it. A lot of these big foundations have annual reports. You can get them on the internet. They release them every year. They're legally obliged. Go and look at an annual report of a foundation that has a big impact in your country and see the work that they're doing and see how they're measuring it. They will have stories. Sarah and her children did this. Philip and his brother started a business. William and his sister made a bookshop. And they'll show you the pictures. And then they'll say, there is 17,000 Philip, Sarahs, and Williams in this community that we have impacted through this much funding that we got this year. They have full transparency. And I think it's good to see things like that to know we can also do that. Start small. In the last 6 months, I've impacted 2 lives. The people who have benefited from my business being operational. But track them, know them, understand them, because it's part of your business. In a regular business, you just have to know your target audience, your customer. What does my customer want? What does my customer need? In a social business, you have to know about your impact. Who is receiving this impact? How are they receiving it? What is the benefit to them? And how do I continue to grow it? So to do this, I always say, remember your why you started this business, because it's not easy what you're doing. And I commend you for it. The journey of an entrepreneur is never simple. It's never short. So you have to have a very strong why. You have to have a very strong vision. You have to remember what drives you. On a good day where everything is going well and people are saying thank you and it's amazing and the sales were good, it's not going to be hard to remember your why. You feel like you're coasting. You're just flying towards your goals. But on a hard day, where you don't know how you're going to pay salaries, or they have threatened to switch you off, or the government has changed something, or you don't have any stock, or the community is now upset with you, you have to remember why you started this, because giving up is not an option. This entrepreneurship journey is a very volatile one. The ups and downs will never finish, no matter how big your company gets, no matter how successful. So remember why you do it and hold on to that very clearly. Feel it. Close your eyes and feel that feeling. Why did I start this business? What is this doing for me and my life? What is it doing for my life, my family, my friends, for my spirit? Why did I start this business? And always hold on to that, because in the dark times, you're going to need that why to help you to get up and to continue. And it will definitely be worth it. I think in a community like
sorry, Dr. Nata, sorry. Time.
Last line, I promise.
All right, no problem, no problem.
I feel like in a community like this one, where we are Pan-African and we have come together from so many countries, I really commend your team. It's a really wonderful thing to do. And it's like what I said about M&E. When it comes to impact, we also have to think about our legacy as Africans. And that's something we can do together. That's why organizations and summits like this are important, to share knowledge, to meet each other, to connect, so that we can also build a better legacy for Africa. Let's have better PR. Let's be trusted. Let's have innovation and ideas and success stories that are also taught in other continents. It's possible and it's doable, but it starts here. The charity begins at home. So I think it's wonderful that we're here together. Thank you for having me as a speaker, and I hope we can all continue to interact together moving forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think I don't know what to say, because you can see in the chat room that there is a lot of appreciation about your presentation and also Mrs. Itoto's presentation earlier. But thank you. Those were key nuggets, very important nuggets. Yeah, I mean, people were asking if we are going to share this presentation later. So if you want to share your presentation with us, well, I think we have this recorded as well. So we will be sharing the recording with the registered attendees, really. So we will be sending the recordings to you also. Thank you. So thank you so much, Dr. Natalie. That is very, very powerful. Now, we have run out of time to be able to do the Q&A for this first section, this first part of the summit. So what I will advise and I will suggest is if you can stay behind very briefly, yourself and Mrs. Itoto, to answer some questions in the chat. But I mean, I'm happy to also allow one person among the attendees, just to bring the attendees into the conversation, so that they don't feel like we are not hearing them. Is anybody willing to ask, because I can see some questions in the chat. Is anybody willing to ask their question in person, to ask Dr. Natalie? You've asked Dr. Itutu earlier. Can we ask Dr. Natalie just one question, and then we move next to the panel discussion, and very, very briefly too. So who wants to go? Could just indicate, raise your hand, or you can put the text in the chat. Okay. I'm ready to ask. Again, Alexander. All right, great. Okay, let's go for Alexander again. All right. You can speak now. Very briefly.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Natalie. Yeah, so my question hovers, and which I typed it again. How do we create sustainability within the African context when we cannot forever rely on external donors? I think these are the areas that affect the entrepreneurial acumen, as you rightly presented. So what's your opinion on that? Because that's the only way we can be really affect scale, impact, and the sustainability part with. What's your thought on that? Thank you.
It's a very good question, and it's something we should all be asking ourselves, because it's not going to happen overnight. The money is also here. We don't need to rely on them. But I think of it as capacity building right now. We need to use their money to empower our people to know how to generate value. We have to be able to create value on the continent. Instead of us being farmers and we export everything to China, they process it for us, and then we all buy it back at a higher price. We have to learn how to do those things for ourselves in every single sector. So for now, our challenge is take their money and their training and their systems, assess how to use it and utilize it as best we can in Africa, adjust it and adapt it to suit our cultures, our people, our climates, and then do it ourselves. We should not really be relying on donor aid for the rest of our lives. Even us as young people in Africa should not die still surviving on donor money. When you look at a country like South Korea, that's one of the only countries that went from receiving aid to giving aid within 40 years. They are now a top donor. Even here in all our African countries, don't you see Koika? They're giving us money. Yet when our parents were children, the South Koreans were poor. They were receiving money from the white people also. So it's doable. It's definitely possible. It's about how we utilize it. If we continue to use corruption and squander the opportunities we're given, it will not become possible. But if we can learn how to generate that value locally, we will be able to become independent. Within 20, 30 years, it's very possible.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, I love this. I love this. Honestly, we can stay on that topic for the whole of the summit if we like. But very, very key question, and also a very powerful response to that. And I completely agree with everything that has been said. All right. Sorry, we can't take that other question with the other hands on up. If you can put your question in the chat, Dr. Natalie, if you can stay behind for just a few more minutes and then help us respond to some of the questions. And also, Mrs. Itoto, please. I hope you've been doing that already. There are some questions for you when you were presenting as well in the chat. Please help us respond to them there. Apologies, it's time, and we're trying to make sure that we manage the time of everyone very effectively. We're already way past our first panel discussion, which Chembo, where is Chembo? I can't see Chembo, but I believe Chembo is here. Okay, yeah, there is Chembo. There you are. All right, Chembo will be moderating this next the first panel discussion. So I'm going to bring up Chembo. Chembo will then introduce very briefly our panelists. So Chembo is a social enterprise enabler and mentor, a social entrepreneur and facilitator of learning programs. She has over 10 years experience in the sector, where she has failed, succeeded, won, lost, and sustained enterprises. Our entrepreneurial and leadership skills have sharpened through this journey. She's very intentional, and she's a lifelong learner. Chembo is constantly and actively looking for innovative ways to effectively enable social entrepreneurs. So she runs the organization called Swalisano Advisory, and they are one of our very valuable partners for this summit. So Chembo, over to you, and then you will introduce your panelists as briefly as you can. The theme of this keynote, this panel discussion is resource scarcity, inefficiency, or limited awareness. I think it ties very well with the last question from Alexander there. Where is our problem? Is it scarcity? Is it that we don't manage it effectively? Is it that we are limited? We don't really even know what we have. I think it ties very nicely to what Alex asked and also what Dr. Natalie's presentation was about. So over to you, Chembo, take the floor. We have 30 minutes, Chembo. Can we try to make sure we stick to that?
We will do our best. Thank you very much, Doc. And thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for this opportunity. Now, I think there is absolutely nothing that Dr. Natalie said that did not resonate with me. Everything that she said actually resonated with me when I started the journey in social entrepreneurship 10 years ago. So let me begin by telling you just briefly, very, very short story of my journey in social enterprise. But for now, I will ask my panelists to please come on. Moses, Makambe, and Aaron. There was a naming issue earlier, so I think Rita will sort that out. Yeah. Okay, so about 10 years ago, I started my first social enterprise, Kuyakwile. And at that point, we were trying to empower vulnerable women in peri-urban communities just by teaching them some skills, So these women were actually the result of donor funding being cut off. Okay, donor funding being cut off from a program that was supposed to be ongoing. So they were left hanging. And for me, impact on those women's lives had to happen. We had no choice. It just had to happen, But unfortunately, we had absolutely no money at all, not a dollar, not a kwacha, nothing at all in the accounts. So how we made this happen is we looked at the resources that were available, what resources were around us. And as Dr. Natalie rightly said, resources doesn't end at capital or money. There's so many other things that are available to us that can allow us to start this impact work. And that's how Kuyakwile was born. We did some research on what resources were available at that point in time. I had to do a skill set analysis of myself, and I found that indeed some of the skills that I had could enable us to start the program, And thankfully we did. So then in my latter days now of coaching, mentoring, and training, I do find it very intriguing when social entrepreneurs say they can't start what they want to start because they have no resources. And I look at them and I think, what do you mean? You yourself, to start with, are a resource. So you can definitely start something. So the question then is always, indeed, is it resource scarcity? Is it inefficiency? Or is it a question of limited awareness? What is the issue that stops us from being so impactful in our work as Africa, knowing full well that social entrepreneurship is a business model that we have recognized as being able to solve so many problems that conventional ideas or conventional strategies have failed, So on the panel today, we have 3 people who are in the social enterprise space here in Zambia, and I will let them introduce themselves as I ask them questions. So let me start with Aaron Mashano. Are you here? Can you hear me? Can you?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Rita, just please help us with the renaming of Aaron. His name says Precious. Aaron, we're grateful that you are here. So please go ahead and introduce yourself very briefly, and then I'll start with the first question.
Okay, no problem. So can everyone hear me okay? Yeah?
We can hear you.
Okay, so my name is Aaron Mashano. I'm the founder and CEO of Eco Tribe. And we've been operating in Zambia, I would say effectively for 12 months, but been operational for 3 years registered. And yeah, very, very passionate about making a difference through cleaning our environment. And we have a mission to empower as many women and youth as we can in Zambia through plastic recycling. So I think I'll stop there and you can let me know if I need to say more.
For now, that's fine. Thank you. So Aaron, I think we all know that waste management, recycling, upcycling are now the most contemporary activities in the development sector. And I personally really, really love them because they're solving such a deep problem. It's like this whole waste management thing is a multifaceted kind of impact because it impacts people, it impacts positively on the environment, and it's solving so many problems. So I understand you're very busy trying to grow Eco Tribe. What key resources did you need to start your enterprise, and how did you mobilize these resources?
Yeah. So what key resources? I think I'll steal a bit of conversation from Dr. Tally. One of the biggest things I also came to learn later on, this is, or maybe a bit of background, this is actually my 10th business that I've set up. 3 businesses I've exited successfully, meaning they've become viable and I've sold them. And they were in diverse industries. One was in education, and I'm also a consultant. The other is obviously in waste management now. And the previous one was in property investment. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is I was also very fortunate to be educated or reoriented to understand that it's not, and this is a quote I love that I'll share, that it's not a matter of resources, it's more a matter of resourcefulness. And this came from my mentor and coach, Tony Robbins. If some of you don't know, I recommend you Google him, YouTube, get into that. It's not just motivation, but I think a lot of it is about changing our mindset. So the first and most important resource is the idea. But I think behind that is probably the passion of the founder for that idea. And what I mean by that is, if, for example, you're just going into plastic recycling because everybody's jumping into it, as we all know now, it's a viable business, but you yourself don't have a passion, let's just say, for the end goal, which is cleaning up the environment like I do, and have it clear in your mind, chances are the first obstacle that comes up, you're going to rationalize yourself to quit the business because it's difficult. So the biggest resource I always believe is not just necessarily a passion for the idea, but a belief that you are built to do that idea, because not all ideas are made equal. The second is obviously, someone else touched on it. I think I'm putting these in order of importance, of course, from my experience, is a network. And again, the same coach told me that, you know, your network is your net worth. So I would put in there your mentors, your coaches, the ability for you to identify what I like to call an advisory board. This is maybe identifying 10 to 11 or 13.
I think we've lost Aaron there. Is it just me, or can anyone else hear him?
And I think, yeah, I think he's frozen here as well. So
He's frozen. Okay, what a shame. What a place to be frozen. I think we'll give him the opportunity to continue what he was saying at a later stage. So let's move now to Sani Foundation, which is being managed by our dear Makambe Namlwanda. And again, I will let Makambe introduce herself very quickly, and then I'll come in with the question again. Go ahead, Makambe.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Makambe. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you, Makambe.
Okay, thank you. I'm Makambe Namulwanda. I have been running Sani Foundation for the last 6 years. However, I've been part of the inception of Sani Foundation, and this is our 10th year. My background is in social work, and I have a teaching methodology. Sani Foundation is a skills center for young adults with intellectual disabilities. We aim to give them social and economic inclusion in society, and that looks very different for students and the duration they go through the program. That's really, in a nutshell, what Sani Foundation does.
Okay. Thank you. Now, I think we heard the previous panelists asked about sustainability, and of course, we all wonder about sustainability. In the previous discussion, someone mentioned, I think it was Doc, that mentioned that only about 38% of impact-related businesses make it past a certain number of years. But Sani has been around for 10 years. That is big. This year, I think Sani will turn 10 years old. For the impact sector, that is something worth applauding. So what resource challenges did Sani Foundation face? Because definitely we all face resource challenges. What resource challenges did Sani face as it was starting? And how did you overcome these resource challenges to get to the 10th year mark? Could you hear me? Makambi, could you hear me? Oh dear, internet in Zambia is a problem. Could anyone else hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm also back, but we can hear you.
You're back. You're back. Okay, maybe Aaron, you can finish your what you were sharing with us, which was very important. Just maybe under 2 minutes, you can tell us about key resources you needed to start your enterprise and how you had mobilized them.
Yeah. No, I think I was actually concluding there were only 3 things, and I think thinking in threes really helps in any careers to stay focused. So after the network, and I was just talking about the mentors and everyone being part of that, but a key one we have to also really question is not just someone you like, but people who are super connected. These are people, if you look at their phones, they probably have influence to know people in the community. It could be pastors, dentists, barbershop people types. You think they're unobvious people, but these guys have influence in the community. So these will open more doors for you. That's very subtle but powerful. But the third, like I said, is I think the resource of, for me, would be faith or courage. And this comes to this thing I think someone mentioned earlier of having an owner mindset. Whether you're a social entrepreneur or commercial, whatever you want to call it, most of us underestimate the importance of having this courageous action to keep going without, necessarily looking or evaluating your business in the first 1 to 3 years. And I think a lot of people miss that and then tend to drop out too early just before they hit that traction. So those are the 3 things. And I guess in summary, how do I do that? For me, it's because I've been in business for maybe now close to 20 years. I've just really honed in on I'll probably say if there's one takeaway that has really helped me in my stead, is the ability to ask for help. And that's helping these 3 areas. And then just having that mentality. It's not school. Plagiarism in business is very encouraged. I love someone saying, go on websites of your competitors, anyone doing anything good, go and volunteer. If you don't have the skill set, go volunteer in a similar business, learn the how-to in that business, because those are the subtleties most of us don't have, because in school we're taught we have to be perfect, we have to know everything before we start. Business is the complete opposite. So that's all I would say for that.
Okay, thank you very much. So for you, I think the most important thing, as you're saying, is the soft skills and bringing yourself into that, which again resonates with my own situation where I started Kuyakwile without the funding or those sorts of resources. I had to look deep within myself and see what I could use to start with and what I could use to sustain the business with. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Now, if you can allow me to read this quote that I heard from a podcast recently. It said, financial inclusion isn't about being welcomed into a formal banking system, but about being empowered to build a better future. And our next panelist is in the inclusive finance sector. So the inclusive finance sector, we're talking about providing access to finances for rural or peri-urban communities, or just communities that are underserved. Okay, so this person, Moses, is actually running a platform that allows you to save. Okay, and this I found very intriguing, because most of the time, even if you heard in my introduction, I talked about access to finance, but we don't really talk about saving. So Moses, please come through and tell us about Village Savers and what it is you do there.
Thank you, Chembo. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so my name is Moses Mwansa. I'm co-founder and CEO of Village Savers Technology Limited. So Village Savers is a fintech, I call it a fintech, which promotes financial inclusion um, among low-income, unbanked, and borderland communities through financial literacy and digitalization of informal savings and trade. So our focus are those people that have got no access to the formal banking or the traditional banking or financial services, and also to introduce the aspect of digital technology to help them improve their livelihoods. We've been around in Zambia for the past 4 years, and we've also been working in Zimbabwe, and last year we also launched in Botswana. So our focus mostly is on women, because according to the research that we did, we found that these are people that are mostly affected in terms of poverty. And we wanted to promote these people to also become financially included. And the best way, since we are coming from the digital finance sector, the best way we felt could actually help these people is to introduce the aspect of financial literacy, where we teach them the basics of financial management. We teach them about how to run their business by starting with keeping records. So if I'm selling something, most of these people that we work with are marketeers. We'll ask them to record all the transactions that they are, like the ledgers, purchases ledgers, sales ledgers, and then we take them through the process of preparing a trial balance and a basic profit and loss account, so that they may know the financial position of whatever activity that they are doing. So our focus is informal savings, informal trade, and this is what we've been doing. Thank you.
Okay. It sounds really nice, and I am very elated to hear about your internationalization strategy. That's very nice to know that such a business is coming out of Zambia and going into the rest of Africa. Well done to you. So then, Moses, how innovative have you been in combining resources for growth? And your growth now is not just that you've reached the 4-year mark, now you've actually internationalized. So how innovative have you been in combining resources for the growth of Village Savers?
Okay, I must start by saying, and also agree with the previous speakers, that it's not about money. Like, you don't need to have a lot of money for you to start a movement, start an initiative, start a company, and be successful with it. No, it's about the commitment that you have. It's about that dream that you want to achieve. And like Eco Tribe was saying, Mashamo, you need networks, you need people. And I think there was a question also on why such social enterprise or NGO world is failing. It's because people feel for them to do certain activities, they need money. Well, for us, the approach has been that, we've got a lot of philanthropists. Africa culturally, in African societies, there have been a lot of philanthropists. I think most of us here have kept a nephew, have kept a cousin, have kept an uncle. That is philanthropy. Like, we are sharing what we have with other people. This has been in our culture for a long, long time. Myself, I've taken 2 of my nephews to university. Now they are on their own. That is philanthropy. The problem is we look elsewhere. We look to donors for us to get funding for the initiatives that we have to do in our communities. But I say no to that. And most of the people, since I also do some training for social enterprise here in Zambia, and also even for business people, I tell them the best people, the first people to go to when you want resources are the people that you live in within your communities. So do you have shop owners in your communities? Do you have maybe people who run transport businesses like bus owners, taxi owners? Do you have people that sell maybe vegetables? Do you have people who run various kinds of businesses? Go to these people. sell the idea of what you want to change in your community with them. These are the first people that are going to contribute. It might not be enough, but they're going to at least give you something that will move your initiative to another level. So the best level, or the first part of your initiative, is the community. Talk to the people within your community, get something. From there, you can now go to people, maybe elected officials. Is it the mayor? Are they appointed officials like DCs and these other people? You can as well conduct maybe a fundraising event where you invite these people. Trust me, they'll feel the shame of not contributing to your initiative. They'll be forced to contribute. That is another initiative that I've been also sharing with people, and which has also helped us as village savers to grow, because these people that we help are people that are unable to pay. I must mention that we run a digital platform. Village Savers is a web app. In this web app, we give to informal savings groups. So these informal savings groups in Zambia are called village banking groups. They've got different names in different countries, but I know the research that they're all over sub-Saharan Africa. So we offer our platform for free, because most of the people that we save, they are unable to pay because their capitals, the kind of business they do, they don't make as much to pay for maybe an app and all that. So how do we sustain? How do we operate? So we use the same model that I'm explaining, where we engage various people, businesses within our communities, and these are the people that have been able to fund some of the activities that we've been doing, and also supporting the work that we are doing. Thank you, Chem.
Yeah. Okay. This is very very rich information, and I think to all the panelists and to all the participants and Doc, I think the title of this session already says resource scarcity, inefficiency, or limited awareness, but I think we can already move the first part that says resource scarcity, because from our speakers already, we can see that really it's a matter of inefficiency or limited awareness. I think I have very little time left. Let me go back to Makambe, who I saw come back online. Now I can't see her again. Makambe, are you there?
Yes, I managed to log back in.
Okay, thank you. We were just applauding you for being in the business for 10 years, which is a big thing for whether it's a traditional business, a charity, a social enterprise. 10 years is a long time. So we were asking, what challenges did Sani Foundation face as it was starting, and how did you overcome these challenges?
Of course, I mean, our first problem was financial resource. So when we started out, our program was run weekly, only on Saturdays, but we saw the public response with young adults with intellectual disabilities. And so the idea of having the program once a week was not sitting too good. And maybe I would just mix and match the solution that we did to the problem. So what we did was we carried on with the 1 week program, but we spent a year fundraising. So this was doing car washes, and in Zambia, we have the traditional games that we played when we were young. So we'd do those games every week and allow people to relive their life, their childhood, and pay money to do that in a different circle. So it was different activities that we did for a year to actually raise money for registration and be able to pay for our first place of business. That took a year. So it was that fundraising. But also when we did start out, we started out at an organization called Cheshire Homes. They gave us a room to do the program in. And so when we were moving out to start on our own, they still do give us a small yearly grant. So that helped in terms of money. But along the way, we all, and when we started out in that first year, to also not have a big wage bill, we relied on volunteers. so that we're not incurring a big wage bill until we were more sure is where we get money to do overheads and salaries. So it was coming up with little things along the way to mitigate our financial restraints. So there was a fundraising, the child empowerment partnership that we did with Cheshire Homes, and then we came up with the idea of having a litmus test for the program. And so we came up with what we called the Dice Juice Bar, which is a mobile smoothie and juice bar that only employs young adults with intellectual disabilities, but we are making juices and doing different markets within Lusaka. And now we have eventually got a permanent location at a gym. So it was little things like that that enabled us to be able to be sustainable. Yeah.
That is really brilliant and well done to you and the team. So still on you, Makambe. Regarding sustainable resource management, so how has Sunny moved from that first year that you have described to the 10th year? What has been your strategy to stay afloat in between this time?
So I think there's been a lot of, of course we had to move from volunteers to permanent staff because of the kind of beneficiaries we deal with. So we couldn't have an influx of people coming in and going out of the organization. So I think starting the business looks harder for us. My experience has been growing the business and making it more sustainable and more structured has been the difficult part. So like I said, there's been a lot of capacity building for me. Our founder left about 2019, but it was working in hand with capacity building. So part of that capacity building that brings in money is I do consultancy work outside Sunny. So say there are other disability organizations that need capacity building in terms of how do they sustain their students, or how do they transition their students out of the program. So there was little things that I had to learn as I took over the organization to be able to bring in revenue into the organization, but also make us a bit more relevant than just a one-sided kind of business saying, well, we only deal with intellectual disability and it's in training. I had to diversify my capacity to be able to do different things so that it's bringing in a bit more income. And even with the juice bar, it started out as, well, we'll do markets and we'll expose the students to the environments that they're not very used to. But along the way, we started doing organizational functions where an organization can hire the juice bar for a week for an event that brings in income. And then we do upscaling of recyclables, and then we sell glasses to different organizations. And we've also learned to cut down costs. So part of learning to recycle was, how do we not constantly buy disposable cups for the juice bar, but we can upcycle glasses that we can then use in the juice bar, so we're not wasting too much money on those little things. So it has been sitting down and thinking, how can we cut down costs? How can we grow our capacity as an organization to do this? Or how can I, as an individual heading the organization, grow myself that I'm more diverse than just a one-sided kind of product in the organization? I think that has been our really saving grace.
Yeah, Sunny sounds properly innovative. And I was going to ask a question about you providing some advice about generating recurring and various revenues for an enterprise? And I think you've answered that. So that being said, is Dice Juice Bar and all of the other upcycling and recycling works that you're doing, which I'm sure is music to Aaron's ears, can you say that Sunny Foundation is actually sustainable now? Self-sustainable?
Yes. Well, yes and no. We still need external, to be very honest, we still do need external help. And that does still come through from the Child Empowerment Fund. It does subsidize a lot of our expenses. But with also, maybe just to go back, in 2017 and 18, we created a curriculum for the work we've been doing. And that has also been a marketing tool for the other organizations. So if you want to be part of the program, we're going to come and coach a different team with our program and maybe tailor make it to your program. And it's Teveta accredited. So that also gives us a bit of revenue into the organization.
Okay.
And the upscaling for the sale of the glasses, that has been very, very good for us, because once a client, say, buys a juice from the juice bar and they're intrigued how a Savannah bottle can be cut or kept in a certain kind of way, they're constantly ordering glasses. So that has been also something that is a continual production from the team and the students at Sunny.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. Doc, how much more time do I have? Do I have time for 2 more questions?
Well, you have 2 more minutes.
I have 2 more minutes. Okay.
Yes.
So let me go back to Aaron. Aaron, I'm sure you want to grow EcoTribe. I'm sure you want it to flourish, and I'm sure you need resources at the moment. So what solutions are you exploring for your resource mobilization? As you heard, we have 2 minutes, so you have under 1 minute to respond, and then I'll go to Moses.
Okay, I think 30 seconds is enough. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and then my battery will die, and that will be the end of me. But so there are 3 things that are happening. First and foremost, I didn't get to finish this. We have been profitable. Like I told you guys, it's been kind of actively running as a business model that is viable. So we've been actively profitable for the last 6 months out of the 12. And again, this was just because I think I was more intentional with creating a business model and really getting behind my numbers before I started. But in the first 2 months, I was kind of prototyping, and someone mentioned that. So in terms of moving forward, though, the funding structures that we're working on is, for me, back to networks is my biggest hack, which is collaborations with competitors, believe it or not. So I've actually tapped into some other recycling companies, called them, sat with them and said, listen, out of all the products we're actually all collecting, which are your main P1, P2 projects, and ensuring that if they have, say, I'll give you an example of one colleague right now who's giving us 2 tons of cardboard boxes. I focus on cardboard boxes and this Aquavita bottles or water bottles. He now focuses on, other types of materials. So we actually collaborate, which does 2 things. One, it reduces our costs on logistics because everything comes to our center. He can come and pick it up here, and we exchange products. But the second thing is, you'll be surprised, some of your competitors will be your best collaborators because they might not have a truck, as another example. So my truck is being resourced to him to pick up some of his collections. So I hope that kind of answers the question. And then the last part for me now is I'm raising funds through some of our clients who are actually buying our materials and saying, listen, we'll bring you on this. Instead of giving us this price, could we reduce it maybe and get this much margin and then give us an advance? And this is helping us accelerate our growth. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. So it's all about partnership and also innovative finance strategies,
Yes.
It's not always that we have to go and write these long proposals, which take up a lot of time and energy, actually. Sometimes it's just within. We can find the solution just within us. Last question for Moses. Please conclude for us. So in your experience, is it that organizations feel that money is the only resource? Those who come and save or get money from village savers, is that the only resource, or is it limited awareness or the lack of understanding of what resources they actually need? Which is it to you?
From my experience, the biggest problem, the biggest challenge is that the focus for most people is money. And most of these people, I don't know, they focus on, they are defeated even before they can try. Okay. And also, awareness is one of the biggest issues because they may have resources within themselves, but they can't utilize those. So I think the best thing to do is to raise awareness and also to be able to sit with these people, share with them some insights. Like I was explaining here, philanthropy is everywhere in Africa. It's within our culture. Talk to them, let them come together. And I must mention that the people that we've worked with, those groups that we've been mentoring, groups that we've trained, they are now at a higher level. When we started way back in 2021, especially, I can give an example in Livingstone. Some groups started with as low as $100 in terms of their savings portfolio. Right now, there's a group that is doing fine, which has gone to almost 30,000 US dollars in terms of their capital. What they've been doing is that they've been lending each other. They've created a revolving fund. So they've been raising capital and then they've been reinvesting and also diversifying their businesses into farming, into selling things that initially they were not selling because they've got access to capital from within themselves without even accessing loans from these commercial institutions or getting grants or donor aid from these international aid organizations. So we have resources within ourselves. Those who say Africans are poor, I actually disagree with them because we have resources. We can do this. The problem is that we get defeated because of the issues or the propaganda that has been, fed in our heads to say, we are poor and all that stuff. But we can do this. We can come together. We can start these initiatives. We can raise capital, and we can actually improve our livelihoods. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I couldn't say more. I think my time is up. I definitely have enjoyed this discussion and I've learned quite a number of things. So well done to you once again, Doc, and the team, because as Moses has said, it's about raising awareness. And this is what you've done by bringing this group of people together, this panel, this whole conference that we are here for. So well done to you. And I will now hand back over to you. Or I don't know if I'm supposed to take questions from the audience or we are way over time.
Yes, time is a very big one, but I think we should allow one. If there is any question in the chat room already, can we ask if there is a question in the room, the team, please, can we ask? But I should say before the question, fantastic session. I think it's a fantastic discussion. I've been looking forward to this panel discussion. I think I told you, Chembo, earlier, and perfect moderation as well. Thank you to you. Well coordinated. You stuck to time, which is which was good, and I love the points. Now we know where the issues issues are. So it's not necessarily the fact that we don't have the resources, as was it Moses that said that ended it very nicely there. They are there. So it's the way we manage them, is the efficiency, our efficiency in managing those resources, but also is the fact that we might not be aware that the resources we need are actually within our communities, within our own, localities. So amazing point. So thank you to everybody. So is there a question? One question only we can take. Can somebody in the team read a question out, and then we'll hand over back to any of the panelists to answer. And we can do this within 2 minutes if we cannot. Also, is there? Yes, Rita, please.
Yes, there's a question here, and the question says, do you implement community finance management into the social entrepreneurship of yours? I think it's a personal question, and I don't know who the person is referring to. So I guess maybe when someone was speaking, or the person might want to come up to ask the question directly. It's Eric that asked the question.
Eric, okay, so can we unmute Eric to ask very quickly? Eric, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, I think maybe there's an internet issue. I think,
Okay.
Rita, if you go to the question and answer box, there's some questions there, which I think were for this, maybe they were for the previous panel, but you can look in there as well.
Yeah, I think it's for the those are for the previous panel, I think.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I think does anybody understand that question? I want to take it. Can you read it again, Rita, please? What was the question about? Rita, can you read it again? I'm trying to look for the question, but I can't find it now.
Oh, so sorry. I was already reading.
Okay.
I didn't know I muted. Okay, so as I was reading, the question says, do you implement community finance management into the social entrepreneurship of yours? I guess that.
I think Moses, maybe that question is meant for Moses as he was talking about, yeah, Moses, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure what they mean by that question, but I'll just give.
Hello.
Okay,
yeah.
Moses, Eric
Hello.
wants to ask now. So Eric, very briefly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry for the inconvenience. This is Dr. Eric Frank Patinvo. My question was very simple. According to what Moses says, I wanted to know whether they do implement the community financial management, which required that you should source from the community to be able to help in the community. Because most of the time when we launch project, we think we need external funds to be able to start in the project. But basically, you could source from the community by using that old trick that our forefathers were using, like exchanging services, and from the exchanging of the services, getting something back to be able to launch in the project. Sorry.
Right.
So that was the reason why I've asked whether you use that method, because I remember from my daddy as a mentor, we were able to raise 1 billion to help youth implementing job in Benin and in Cote d'Ivoire.
Interesting. Thank you, Dr. Eric. So I think Moses, you were saying something like very similar to that. So do you want to answer the question?
Yes. So yes, Eric, we do that. So it's simple. When we started Village Savers in 2020, we didn't have finances, but we needed to do some meetings because we needed to talk to the beneficiaries, the women, people from low-income communities and stuff. So one, we needed where to meet, and we approached people that maybe had a private, maybe school or a private conference room. And these people, after we explained to them what our goal was, they were able to give us the room for free. So that is a resource that is within the community that we utilized to do what? To further our initiative or to do our job. Two, until 2022, we didn't have any external funding to the activities that we've been doing. To date, we've saved about 16,000 beneficiaries from our initiative. And I can say that up to about 8,000, we didn't have any external funding. We relied on the sources of financing within our communities, within Zambia, and that's how we've been able to undertake or to implement this community initiative. So the answer to your question is yes. We've been using the resources raised from our communities to implement projects in those communities. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And it's wonderful.
Thanks for the question, Eric, and thank you, Moses, as well for the response. And thank you very much for this panel discussion. I found it very, very helpful. I found it very useful. I believe everybody in the room as well have found it the same. Chembo, wonderful coordination. Thank you to all of the panelists. Your points and your experience running this and sharing that with us today has been, in fact, it has been invaluable. So thank you to you all. All right. Because of time, again, we just move along very, very quickly. We were supposed to have a mindfulness session where we just kind of ease out of the serious talk, but I think we should replace that now because of time and just move very quickly to our next set of speakers, the second keynote speaker. Apologies. Rita, I know you are prepared for this, but I think we are running out of time and we need to keep to time, if you don't mind. What were you going to make us do anyway, Rita? Do you want to tell us?
Okay, yeah, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. So I was going to make us just exhale negative vibes, thoughts, feelings, emotions, and then taking positive ones. Just
Okay.
a very simple
Super.
exercise.
Oh, okay. Well, I think we all now know that. I mean, this is one of your passionate areas. So yeah, you might be engaged by anyone in the room on this in the future. But because of time, we would just have to rush along. But anyway, I think we all should do that while we are listening as well. Just inhale the good stuff, right? And then exhale the negative stuff, right? Okay. I will keep doing that throughout this session. Okay, thank you. Let's move on now. So we have what we have for the rest of the afternoon for the attendees. What we have for the rest of the afternoon, we have two different sessions. One is a set of keynotes again that will be delivered by Dr. Jonas and William Goose, and then we will have another set of question and answer if the time permits. Before we then welcome Tizita to talk to us very briefly about People and Planet. And then we'll have our final session for the day, which is panel discussion 2, another interesting discussion looking at the ecosystem more broadly around resource and impact work in Africa. So these are still exciting sessions you don't want to miss. So let's move now straight to keynote session 2. Do we have Dr. Jonas? Oh, yes. Dr. Jonas
I'm here.
Great. All right, let me introduce Dr. Jonas very quickly. Yes, Dr. Jonas is the director of the Institute for Social Transformation, IST, at Tangaza University College. He is a critical educator and a social entrepreneur himself. His experience in higher education spans over 20 years, and that is in Malawi, in Zambia, in Kenya. He works he looks at unlocking university students' potential to become social innovators. That's one of his key passionate area. He is the founder of the Africa Annual Conference of Social Entrepreneurship, which is short form or abbreviated as ACOS. I'm sure some of you in the room will know about that conference just very recently. He is the founder of the Social Innovation Sandbox to unlock university students' potential to become social innovators. He's the co-founder of the Social Innovation Summit in DRC, and he founded in 2018 the Comboni Alliance for Social Entrepreneurship, abbreviated as CASE, under the Comboni Missionaries in Africa. Today, he will be talking to us about a very important topic, which he has titled Finding and Making Resources for Sustainable Impact. Some of your questions I have seen, the participants have seen some of your questions, and is actually speaking to this particular title. So I think you will find this very, very useful. Over to you, my very good, we say in Yoruba, Egbon, that is senior, a very good senior. So over to you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Ademi. Thanks a lot. And then also putting all this together, I know a lot of effort has been put into this. And I think for me, it's always exciting, to have a gathering of social entrepreneurs having conversation and then trying to see how we move this space. And I believe that this is one of the most fascinating space in social entrepreneurship. It's good to have this conversation. And why also this is very interesting for us as Tangaza University. I think we are, in terms of academic institution, we are kind of the front runners in entrepreneurship. And we have been doing that over the last 13 years and through capacity building in our programs, very practical program, because we believe that capacity building is key to the success of social enterprise. So we do that through our MBA program, through our PhD program, through our diploma program. And we are very passionate about creating the next generation of young social entrepreneurs. We also know very well that the topic that you chose for this year on sustainability is a crucial topic. We find so many innovation on this continent. But we also have the experience or the pain of seeing innovations, social enterprise that fail. And they fail, and when they fail, it's not only the social entrepreneur who feel the pain, but other stakeholders, the beneficiary of that innovation. So I think this is what we need to avoid. And how do we create sustainable social enterprise that are really successfully increasing their impact, not reducing their impact, but increasing their impact. I think the sustaining social enterprise, or the issue of sustainability, is an issue of life and death for a social enterprise. Basically, if you can be sustainable, you live. If you can't, if you don't, then you die. So it's that crucial. So when the conversation we are having to say, where do we find the resources? What are the opportunities for sustaining ourselves? I think is crucial. I want to start by saying that building a sustainable social enterprise is like building a house. So when you are going to build a house, you have your plan, and then you call the engineers, the architects. They are making their calculation. The first question is, how do we build this house that is very resistant? It resists to all kinds of eventuality, wind, whatever. Okay, and they make their calculation, and based on that, they build the foundation of the house. If the house is going to be two-story building, the foundation has to be consequent to that. I want to use that analogy to explain what it means to build a sustainable social enterprise today. It's not something that comes after we start enthusiastically about an innovation, and then we try later on to figure out how do we make it sustainable. No, I think it has to be part of the design of the social enterprise. And then in that way, we are asking some basic questions before even building the social enterprise, and how do we make it sustainable. So my emphasis is start thinking on onset about the sustainability of the social enterprise. And I want to give what I call the 10 ingredients. I hope I will have time to give the 10 ingredients for sustaining impact. And you can pick any of them, in your organization, if you really want to be sustainable. The first ingredient is that sustainability should become core of what a social enterprise does. So it's the heart of it, because you are saying, if I'm solving this problem, I'm creating this impact. I don't want to leave people hanging at one point because I'm not able to deliver. I'm not able to provide that service to them. So it's not like, okay, we are doing this, we are providing this service or this product to our beneficiary or to the people we are solving problem for, and then about sustainability. Maybe when we finish providing the service, we think about sustainability. No, we are saying that sustainability is core. It's part of what you do. And I also see it as a responsibility, in the sense that when you discontinue, when you fail, you have failed people, or you have failed people you are serving. So it becomes very important that we knowledge of sustainability as the core of what we do, not an appendix of what we do. The second is the second ingredient for me is the continuous innovation. You have to be able to sustain your innovation. Innovation is not, okay, we have innovated, this solution. We are in the market. We are providing this solution, and then we end there. So it requires that you continuously exploring new way to deliver service to your product, explore new revenue stream. That is how you become sustainable. Whatever what you have been doing the last 5 years, there are new emerging things, and are you able to tap into those opportunities? Are you able to create new services or improve those services, explore new streams? Okay, so continual innovation should be part and parcel of the DNA of the organization. For me, I see that as the second important thing that organizations should care about for sustaining impact. The third ingredient is what is decision making. What decision organization makes affects what happened to them. If you are making decisions that are not leading to the sustainability of your organization, it's going to affect you. So here I'm asking the question, what is your sustainability vision? And your sustainability vision should kind of influence the decision that you make. If you are saying, okay, we want to be a sustainable, and whatever decision we are making, you say, okay, as we make this decision, is it going to contribute to our sustainability, or it's going to kill our sustainability? But I think it's also important that organizations discuss the sustainability vision, of what they do. The fourth is culture, leadership and culture. Okay. For me, I keep saying culture is everything. Okay, it's the culture within the organization should be a culture rooted in sustainability, if that matters to the people, and so that the leaders make it clear that, look, we want this our behavior, our way of doing things to show that we care about the sustainability of this organization. So it has to be embedded in the value, in the practices of the organization. So basic things that social enterprise should ask themselves: whatever we are doing, our culture, is it in any way contributing to the sustainability, to sustain our organization and the service that we provide to people? So it's a question that social enterprise should keep on asking themselves. Do we have the culture within the organization? Is the leadership caring about the sustainability culture of the organization? My fifth ingredient is, it has been mentioned by many practitioners in the room. I'm very happy that you mentioned that networks and strategic partnership. It will open door for a social enterprise. Sometimes we know very well that network is very important, but are we deliberate about it? That's the other question. Are the social entrepreneurs deliberate about building their network? And not only building it, sometimes you have network, but you are not leveraging on those networks for your sustainability. So it's very important to become very deliberate and see how the networks that you are building, the partnership that you are building, are opportunity for us to build our sustainability, or also offer us new opportunities, because that's what networks offer you, new opportunity to sustain what you are doing. Okay. I mentioned the whole issue about culture, but I want to bring the other aspect of practices. What are the sustainability practices within the organization? Is it part of the, let me call it, the fabric of the organization that everybody looks at? Even your operation, is it taking into account the sustainability of the of the organization? I mentioned before at the beginning that I want to insist on that. Sustainability, the whole idea of sustainability should not be an appendix of the organization. We do this and then we think about sustainability later. No, it has to be embedded in the organization practices and all that. My seventh point is considering the environment, the challenge, the environment social enterprise are operating in, the challenge they face today. I think sustainability implies that you continuously rethink your business model. Look, sometimes social enterprises are stuck with their business model, and especially when they are successful, and when they're succeeding, that success will last. Okay, and they kind of sit on the initial success. But it's important that when you are successful, I think you should start also thinking, what is going to kill this success that we have currently? Okay. We have seen organizations that have been quite successful, that 3 years they're doing very well. All of a sudden they find themselves, they move on, and a lot of things have happened. So for me, success is a good thing, but at the same time, success is a red light. It's a red light that something might go wrong. Okay, so it's very important that to sustain the organization, you have to keep on rethinking your business model. Ask yourself question, is what you are doing going to sustain us in the future? What are the things that need to change in the way we operate, in the way we deliver value to our customer? The next ingredient, the eighth ingredient is what I call resource mapping and analysis for sustainability. Sometimes you can see also that one of the things that the sustainability organization is asset utilization, how you use your resources. Or maybe sometimes you are inefficient in the way you use your resources, or you are not maximizing on the resources that you use. And resources here also will mean also even the physical resources, the financial resources, the people within the organization, and all that. So how efficient, I add to resource utilization, how efficient is the organization in the use of the resources that they have currently? So, you know, the other danger we have is that we get blinded with what, you know, we get caught into routine and blinded to see new things. And then we don't also see even the opportunity of reconfiguring our resources. I think sometimes you have the resources, but you're not able to reconfigure them. How do you reconfigure your resources to make you sustainable? I think that's something that is important for the entrepreneurs. For the sustainability of your organization, you know that human capital is key. So it's also, for me, I find it very important ingredient to kind of build those, invest in the capacity within. For example, if you make everybody within the organization with a capacity of, you know, looking for new resources or capacity of exploring new opportunity, that is another way for organization to become very sustainable. So it's not left to the CEO or the top management, but everybody within the organization can say, okay, you know, I found this opportunity here. It will be good for the work that we do. It will take our organization to the next level. Okay, so the social entrepreneur should invest in the capacity within the organization so that everybody is able to, you know, embrace sustainability and contribute to the organization sustainability. So finally, I think we need to be very careful with the practices that we have. In the organization, are we having conversation, sustainability conversation? And it's so simple, for instance, that you know, organization will meet and say, you know, what is going to happen to us in the next 2 years? Are we going to be sustainable? Are we going to make it? So this conversation, social enterprise to create this conversation within, so that, you know, becomes a part of the practices, the normal practices. Sometimes you can even challenge each other to say, look, if you do things this way, it goes against our sustainability vision, our sustainability practices. So how do we promote sustainability? How do social enterprise promote sustainability practices within? I think for me is key, you know, for the sustainability of the organization. I want to conclude by saying that I've heard people saying there is a lot of resources. Sometimes the risk is that when we talk about sustainability, we become, you know, obsessed whole aspect of finance. Finance is very important. We need the finance, okay? But I want us to also look at other things that might not be finance, but are crucial for the sustainability of the organization. And as we look for finance, we also have to build on the other elements, you know, develop other ingredients that are going to help us. Sometimes the door to finance will come when we have done some homework, when we, for instance, we have built partnership, we have built capacity and all that. So that we have the culture within where everybody is working towards the sustainability. So I want to say that, yes, we are concerned, we need to be concerned about of the social enterprise, because for us, you know, people in this space, our success, our joy is to see more and more enterprise successful and all that. And it's important that social entrepreneurs, the founders, they building into their organization the sustainability, the culture, the resources, and all that. I think I will leave it here. Maybe there are other items that we can.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you, Dr. Jonas, as well. Again, very powerful. I love your 10 points. You will see in the chat room that people are actually missing some of the points they forgot and they want to take note of that. I don't know if you can just list the 10 points in the chat room for us before you leave. I think it will be useful for a lot of people. Somebody is saying, what is number 4? What is number 6? What's number 1? Because of time as well. So it's very insightful. So thank you so much. I think it's very useful for everybody. Time is a big deal when you're organizing things like this. I know you know that from organizing our course. So you know how time can be a big issue. So we will move to the next keynote speaker just very quickly. But Dr. Jonas, if you can stay behind to, like I said, maybe help respond to some of the questions in the chat, and also drop the 10 points, will be very useful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Willem, let me go to Willem. Willem Goose is our next keynote speaker. Very briefly, very quickly before I do that, we have a panel discussion coming next, and Annie, I can see Annie is on the call already. We have Tizita actually, and I can see Tizita is on the call as well. So sorry if you are seeing that your name is not showing, you are seeing Willem Goose. We are having a bit of a technical issue and it's picking up a different name. The team will try to message you now. You can fix that, but if you can't fix it, you can just introduce yourself when you come on. And even if you can't see your name there, you can just introduce yourself. So Tizita, it should be your time now, but unfortunately we're running a bit out of time. So let's go next to Willem very quickly. Right. So
thank you very much.
Willem Goose. Let me introduce you, Willem. Should I introduce you? Do you want me, or do you want to do it yourself?
I'm going to do that part of my thingamabob. So
okay, then.
We'll do that. Then. We'll quickly get into that.
Go for it.
That's fine. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. When I share my screen, just please spin my screen then, so that people can.
You should be able to. Did you try to do that?
Okay, I shared it. If you can just pin me. Am I pinned? Everybody can see my screen? Okay, smashing. Yes. I'm loving this. This is great. Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about from resources to resourcefulness, the missing link in African entrepreneurship. So what are we missing? The best way to drive sustainability and change on the ground is through entrepreneurship, but yet millions are spent on entrepreneurial development, yet there's little or no impact for that. Considering the millions and billions being spent on entrepreneurship in Africa, there should be a tsunami washing over the continent of new entrepreneurs. Doesn't happen. And most people literally do not care about sustainability and saving the planet. They don't. When you work on the ground, you're like, I don't care. I literally don't care. And I'll get into why we're facing these challenges. This will be the flow while we are where we are, what we need to overcome this current solutions, and a quick Q&A. A little bit about myself. I was Startup Mentor of the Year for the African Startup Ecosystem Builder Awards. My company, The Human Entrepreneur, won the Entrepreneurship Education Program of the Year in 2023. Apparently one of the top 50 thought leaders and influencers on Lean Startup. And I'm the first person to tell you to kick Lean Startup out of Africa. The sooner we can do that, the better for the continent. And I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years, been an online for 26 years. Oh no, good gracious, 28 years. I have my master's in information systems management, come from manufacturing background, even won awards in creative industry. What do I do in the Human Entrepreneur? Rapid entrepreneurship development. I go into your typical little town, township, slum, and I take an unemployed person. I get them to start a profitable business in 5 weeks without requiring external funding. And we can do this at scale. Let me put it in context. We reduced the time to create a job through self-employment and entrepreneurship to 5 weeks. The cost to about $1,000 for a job. The World Bank pegs it at $20,000. I go like, hold my coffee, let me show you. And we can create hundreds, even thousands of these businesses every month. Why does it work? Because it was created in Africa for Africa. Also, I'm on a mission to make entrepreneurship accessible to absolutely everyone. I believe develop the humans instead of the businesses. So I really don't care for the sustainability of the business. If it must fail quickly, and let's start another one. We need to keep the entrepreneur in the game. There's enough business ideas and businesses out there where there's not enough entrepreneurs. So what's holding us back? We are rich in resources, but our poverty lies in our resourcefulness. It seems that we're consistently doing the same things, expecting different results. And there's many other things that play into account as well. The 3% believe, like, only 3% of people can be entrepreneurs. I'm a professional speaker. When somebody says that, I usually boo from the back or ask them to leave the stage because they're destroying people. It discourages investment. It perpetuates inequality and this belief that, oh, you are born, you must have a halo. Whoa, and we must worship you as an entrepreneur. BS, that should be kicked out. Lean startup. Lean startups should be kicked out of Africa. It's relevant to maybe 5 to 10% of startups in Africa. Why do I say that? Lean startup needs a first world environment to function and operate. Okay, it takes a very long time. People are hungry now. It is exceptionally expensive. It requires a lot of resources. It has a low throughput. If you run a big lean startup program, you can create 50 businesses a year. Ooh, is that really going to solve our problems? No. We need to create entrepreneurs in mass. And with lean startup, it's not going to go that. It's also based on this idea that you need funding. The one thing we don't have and the one thing you don't need to start a business. And as I said, it's expensive. Secondly, we suffer from incubation constipation. A lot of these startup programs are full to the brim, but nothing's going nowhere. People are not doing their work. There's little or no creativity. Incubatees sit in the typical excuses. I need access to market and I'm waiting for funding and some MVP rubbish that they're doing instead of doing the work. If it's a bit harsh and a bit too honest, ladies and gentlemen, bear with me, I have no other setting. Also, then we have learned helplessness. I've seen it, spoken to people right through Africa, and it seems to perpetuate everything. If you're not familiar with learned helplessness, I'm an old man. When I was a kid, circuses had animals. Now they turned us into the animals. But when they bought a new baby elephant, cute as it can be, they took a rope, tied it around its leg, and to a peg in the ground, and it couldn't escape. And I used that same rope when it's an adult. It doesn't escape because it has learned that it's helpless. The people in Africa believe I cannot start a business or be an entrepreneur if I don't have a business plan, a registered business, or funding. I'm like, you don't need any of those to start with. Here's another thing. Why do people not believe or care about the environment? They're like, oh, let's go green. And you're like, no, I'm not going to. Why? Interesting research that was done by Princeton. And they did research on Indian seasonal workers. And they found in season, these guys make brilliant financial decisions. Okay, not brilliant, good financial decisions. Out of season, when they have no money, and if you've been in India, you will understand they do poverty on a prize-giving level. They found that the cognitive impact of that poverty can be as high as 13 IQ points. That's like sitting here listening to this conference without having slept last night. Also, it leads to cognitive tunneling. I'm going like, do you have a sandwich? Do you have a sandwich? Yeah. And you're like, no, look at green. Let's save this. And like, I don't have mental capacity for that. Do you have a sandwich or do you have a windmill? I want the sandwich. Okay. That's a big problem that we face because these startup programs take so long to get people to make money. They never get out of that cycle. Also, our focus is completely wrong. If you look at the makeup of businesses, about less than 1% are big corporates. Okay, everybody goes like small businesses. We need to scale them, and medium businesses. Kick it out. Forget it. It's irrelevant. It's such a small segment. The biggest part of an economy is micro enterprises. They usually make up 85 to 90%. Even in the United Kingdom, 95% of all businesses are less than 10 people. And that is the interesting thing about this. Yet, we teach we take micro businesses, entrepreneurs to start up, and we teach them processes and procedures and systems. Oh, we got to have this in place. You got to have this process in place. It's irrelevant. At this phase, you only play mindset. It's about developing the person. That's where we come into. So this is where we need to focus on entrepreneurial literacy, and that's the work that I do. Shifting people from other directed to self-directed. Don't build businesses, develop people who build businesses. Yes, and if the business goes under, yes, fine. A few people will not have help for that. Somebody else will pick up that slack. But imagine staying in a relationship for the kids and you're destroying yourself in the process. That's what you're doing. You're walking next to a river, seeing somebody drowning. You can't swim yourself and go like, I think I should jump in. You should not. Help yourself, get yourself on it, and keep the entrepreneur in the game. They will build businesses. And when we activate the entrepreneurial spirit in the people of Africa, it turns from this. This is the work that I do. That is the Atacama Desert. This is it after rain. This is how you wake up the entrepreneurial spirit in Africa from underneath the sands of the desert. Now you can have entrepreneurs everywhere. See, because we treat entrepreneurship as a learnable skill. This thing that, oh, you're blessed to be an entrepreneur. No. Everybody can do this at your own time, in your own profile. It's my business. Who are you to say I'm building my business incorrectly? It's like telling me I'm raising my kids wrong. Go raise your own kids. This is mine. Also, we need to move towards a human-centric approach. All this entrepreneurship development is develop businesses, development. And you're like, hang on, where's the entrepreneur in this? No, don't worry. We need to keep the business going for at least 2 years. No, if you can kill it in 5 days, that'll be great. Let's get the entrepreneur going. We need to accelerate the growth of human beings and getting the roots right, the thinking right. And if you look at the work that I do, I get people to get profitable in 5 weeks. They'll leave my class today, tonight they'll make money and eat and feed their family. Boom, you broke through the 13 IQ barrier. Next day they come to class, they go like, they're awake, they're going, and now you can talk to them. Hi, let's talk about the environment, because now they have the cognitive capacity to do that. But simply forcing this, like force feeding a duck to make foie gras is not going to work. It's not working out there. So how do we do this magic that we do? We do that through mindset. We just shift mindset. That's why the work that I do is independent of industry, sector, or business style. And we do it in 5 weeks. Simple like that. 2-day theory. In 4 weeks, you go into a practical. We call it the entrepreneurial apprenticeship. And you have to build a business. And the funny thing is, many people will start and kill 3 or 4 businesses in 4 weeks. And it's simple. You know, I tried that one for 2 days. Did it work? No. How do you know? It didn't make money. Well done. Let's kill that. What's next? And get going with that. And it's teaching people that resourcefulness that they can go forward with. So that's our 5-week program, how we awaken people. Also started now of late with my Side Hustle Success book and masterclass. So this was written for Africa. It's simple, straightforward. I had people in India read it, West Africa. Everybody went like, Willem, this is simple. You're like, yes, we're talking stories. And we get sponsors to buy the book. And when they give more than 150 away, me or my trainers deliver a 3-hour Side Hustle masterclass. And it works like a bomb. We've tested it in primary schools, high schools, universities, communities. People go like, we have to turn people away. This is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Africa is rich in resources. Now people are resilient, but our problem lies in our resourcefulness. And it's also very much to do with the conversation that we have around entrepreneurship. Stop talking about business. Start talking about people. We need to develop the people of Africa so that they build businesses, not businesses to uplift the people of Africa, because we're destroying people in the process. I've seen it time and time again. Entrepreneurial literacy is an important thing because it shifts the mindset. It creates the mental fitness and the resourcefulness that our people and our continent needs. And that's how we wake up the potential and economic potential of Africa and its people. Please connect with me. You can scan that QR code if you want to give me feedback. If you want to shout and scream at me, do that as well. I love difficult conversations.
All
Thank you very
right,
much.
wonderful. That was
In
very
time.
insightful. Yes, I mean, yeah, I think that we were all just listening and just soaking in all of those data and all of those powerful information you shared. I think we can see an alignment in what has been discussed all throughout today. You know, the emphasis has always been on, you know, on us in our resourcefulness as a people. You know, I think it's really demystify most of what has been out there, like, oh, we're a very poor nation, Africa has no resources, we don't have this, we don't have that. Actually, it is us that needs to wake up and be better in terms of how we manage our resources. And I've seen that over and over in all of the presentations, and then you just nailed it as well there, Willem. Thank you so much. And well, I believe your book is almost, it's a bestseller now, isn't it? So I still need to hold that one.
Well.
You have not given
we'll,
me a hard copy link. You need to sort that
we'll
out.
make a plan. My people will call your people, but it's an interesting thing, you know, it reminds me when you started this conversation of a conversation I've had many times with my French client, and we go like, stop making cheap smartphones for Africa. Stop making cheap products for Africa. Uplift Africa so that they can buy the freaking iPhone. That's where we need to get to. And that's what I want to do for this continent.
Fantastic. And I believe we all are trying to do that as well. So you are not alone on that journey. Everyone on this call is exactly trying to do that. I mean, I'm excited at what is happening. I'm excited. So anyway, time, again, is always an issue. So please, Willem, Dr. Jonas, thank you. I can see you already engaging in the chat. Willem, maybe you can do the same. I think, I'm not sure if there's a question there for you, but you can check if there is any. But you can also leave your contact details in case people want to follow up with you later after this. But thank you to both of you. It was a fantastic keynote session. I think we've enjoyed all of our keynotes today. We are going to move to the final phase of today's activities. So we have a 5-minute presentation quickly from Tizita, who is going to walk us through. So Tizita will introduce herself and then walk us through this verification process that they have set up, and it's actually global now, and it's aimed at social enterprises. And I think a lot of social entrepreneurs on the continent can take advantage of that process. So Tizita, please, we are very short on time. Annie, I'm sure you have to leave for your event. If you had to leave, I will take over from wherever you stop, if that is okay. All right, I will take over. All right, so Willem, Tizita, apologies about the name again. Over to you, 5 minutes, please.
Hello, can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, a little bit louder though, a little bit louder.
Okay, so I'm going to just quickly share my screen for you to see the presentation as I go through it. Just in the interest of time, as the share screen comes along, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Sizda, and I am in this capacity. My background's within social enterprise, the social economy, having worked in the field for about, give me 1 second, sorry, wrong screen. Having worked in the social economy and social enterprise field for the past 10, 11, 12 years, I've co-founded a few social enterprises myself. I am also the co-founder of Social Enterprise Ethiopia, which is the national body for social entrepreneurs in Ethiopia. We lobby for policy, we provide capacity building. In this particular capacity, I am representing Social Enterprise World Forum, which is where I am a board member representing Africa. So we have under the Social Enterprise World Forum, we have the People and Planet First verification. The People and Planet First verification is really all about shared identity. Social Enterprise World Forum has been convening social entrepreneurs all over the world since 2008. In this time, we realized that there is a global movement that is happening around the world. And this global movement has many key identifying factors. And so with this convening and with the engagement we've been having since 2008, we realized, and also with the new economy kind of being in the horizon and the place of social enterprise is really growing in that movement, we realized it was important to kind of bring together the collective. So People and Planet First is really a global movement, a global campaign to help social enterprises, social economy organizations to have a very identifiable, a way for them to be identifiable. There's been a move in the past few years, especially after COVID, whereby we realized that our systems are broken, our planet is not in the best state, and change is needed. So our response to this was People and Planet First, whereby we brought our global community to really understand how are we able to work together collectively? How can we ensure our visibility? With global discussions from all our different partners, we came up with a verification platform, which is People and Planet First, whereby we verify social economy and social enterprises under this verification. So I think I jumped through, but the why, as I mentioned before, is, as there's about 10 million social enterprises all over the world currently. And then, of course, this could be more as well, as social enterprises come in so many different formats and social economy organizations come in so many different formats. We found that there's lots of impact on the ground, but it's very hard to be visible. And right now, with the changing trends around the world, consumers are also looking to invest or consumers are looking to buy from organizations that are conscious of this, conscious of the environment, conscious of social impact. And also funders, governments are also looking to fund and work with social impact organizations. So it became paramount for us to create a way for us to be visible. So our new shared identity is really about bringing the whole global movement together. Our years of working with the global movement, creating a convening platform for the global movement, working with different governments to really expand social enterprise policy in every country that we usually are hosted in, showed us that there is a global movement all over the world, and there is need to consolidate that. Yes, so it also became apparent to us that Social Enterprise World Forum was really becoming a network of networks, whereby lots of networks were kind of convening under, representing diverse ecosystems. As such, it also became an interesting opportunity for us to explore how can we really collaboratively work with these networks who are part of this ecosystem and create a global movement. Sorry, that's so. People and Planet First currently is in 129 countries and growing. We are excited to be welcoming different countries every quarter, really, and believe that a shared identity will help the ecosystem grow. So why be part of the global movement? Why be part? Why be part of the global movement? Talk about the verification standards. What standards do we follow? So the first, of course, is purpose. Is the organization there to solve a social environmental purpose problem, or does it have a social environmental purpose? Operations, does it prioritize purpose in its operations over profit? Does it have a self-sustaining revenue model? Do we reinvest the majority of the surpluses towards the purpose? What is the legal structures? Do the legal structures protect long-term purpose? These are the core standards that we use to verify social enterprises. And we work in a partnership. So we have a few options. We have double badge partners, which are, for example, the Fair Trade Federation, who already are, have their certifications that really align with ours. In this case, organizations that go through a double badge partner would have no verification fees, and no document checking would also be required, because the process is, when an organization is looking to be People and Planet verified, they would either go via the different partners we have, or can also apply directly. So we also have single badge partners, who are partners networks who we work with, who have social enterprises under them, and usually we have a revenue share model with them, whereby we provide 40% revenue to the organization for document checking, and then provide the verification. Organizations can also directly apply. So what happens is, our system is on what we call Good Markets. Good Markets is a digital commons, whereby anyone can really create a free profile, express their interest on People and Planet First, pay our administration fee, which is $85 USD. Our annual renewal is $70. This wouldn't apply if you're coming via double batch partner. And then upload your relevant documentation. And then in a week and a half, we would be able to provide you the verification certificate. Okay, I'll just pass that. Yeah. So really what People and Planet is really about bringing the social enterprise ecosystem together, providing avenues for social enterprises to also be identified. It's also one thing that's happening right now as we talk about sustainability, and as we talk about financing of social enterprises, there's lots of organizations looking to finance social enterprises. There's lots of policy discussions happening, but identification of organizations to work with is now a key problem. So this is where People and Planet First is able to come in and provide this verification. Thank you. I hope I have not run out of time. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much, Izita. Apologies. It's just that we started a bit late and we've run out of time. But I mean, just drop the website link about the People and Planet in the chat so that people can go read it up for themselves, and maybe do engage with them as well. Maybe share your contact details in case they want to know more. But thank you for letting us know about the amazing work you're doing. All right, I think we should just move to our last major session for the day. But before we do so, the team will pop in a feedback link into the chat. Please, all attendees, please do complete this feedback form. It's the only way we know how we're doing, but also what it is, what is it you find useful, and what do you want us to continue. So please, once they pop the link, that's it right there. Just please click on it and start filling it on the side while we go into our next and final. I can't wait for this session. I can't wait for this next discussion. So I will bring up Annie, who only has a few more minutes, unfortunately. But I'm happy to take over from where she stops. So I will quickly introduce Annie. So Annie is the Community and Partnership Manager. Is a Community and Partnership Manager. She is a distinguished professional with over 2 decades of experience in the finance and technology sector, where she has played pivotal roles from managing the 1.5 billion portfolio to spearheading community-centric tech initiatives. She's the founder of African women in tech, and she has made remarkable strides in empowering women across Africa through education and mentorship in technology. She works currently at the African Diaspora Network, where she continues to leverage her expertise in fostering partnerships and community engagement, driving forward the organization's mission to impact and advocate for the African diaspora. Annie will then allow the panelists to introduce themselves during our discussion. So, Annie, I hand over to you. I can't wait for this amazing session.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that introduction. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the team for putting this together. I'm so excited to be here. We're going to jump right into it because I don't want anyone to miss any opportunities to ask the questions that you've wanted to ask. So I thank you for being here, and you already know my name. I'm currently at the African Diaspora Network, and that organization is located in Silicon Valley. What that organization is able to do is connect not just Africans on the continent, but Africans in the diaspora together, therefore creating programs. The programs and initiatives that we've created thus far is ASEW, which is our annual flagship event that's going to be held in Washington, D.C. in 2025 of May. We also have our Builders of Africa program. These are accelerator programs where we actually work with entrepreneurs on the continent. And it's a cohort that goes for about 3 months. And at the end of that cohort, it's not that you're guaranteed anything, but we do have partners that are committed to leveraging, let's just say, a certain amount that will help you to proceed further once you complete your cohort. We also have the Accelerating Black Leadership Enable program. These programs are specific to USA entrepreneurs, helping them build out their careers and offering mentorship and leadership programs. Today, however, is a special day, as I mentioned. Our panel today will explore the state of the African social enterprise ecosystem, particularly how we resource impact work. At ADN, I mentioned, we, especially through our initiatives like ASEW, we see the potential of the diaspora to support and scale social enterprises that are making a difference. As we assess current progress and chart future pathways, let's focus on how we can collaborate to enhance this ecosystem and drive sustainable impact across Africa. You may not have access to talk to me today. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and all my social media channels. I will definitely get back to you. But today, the focus is on the panel. I'm excited to hear what the panelists have to say. So as we move around, and I'm trying to see where the panelists are, please feel free to introduce yourself. If I missed you just because of how my system is positioned, and I'm sorry, that's very unprofessional, but I will make sure I say your name correctly. So let's start with introducing, he said she was just speaking right now, so we can introduce her as a panelist.
Should I reintroduce myself again?
We'll just say your name and your
okay.
title of your company.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you, Annie. So my name is Lisa Tafara. I'm representing Social Enterprise Ethiopia and Social Enterprise World Forum, where I'm a board member of. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Adesso, did I say that?
Hi, everyone. My name is Adesso Lashtel. I'm faculty at McMaster University in Canada. Originally, I'm from Ethiopia, and I do research on social entrepreneurship in Ethiopia and other African countries as well.
Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Karen.
Yeah, hi, everybody. It's really good to see you. My name is Karen. I'm here in London at the London School of Economics, but South African, co-founder of the African Network of Social Entrepreneurship Scholars, and have worked quite extensively on the policy processes with the African Union and researching social entrepreneurship and more broadly in the African context. So really looking forward to today's discussion.
Thank you. And finally, we have Anneli.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. My name is Anneli Bloch, and I'm the CEO of Igugu Global. And we're a green finance company making it incredibly easy to search, structure, and finance sustainable assets. Thank you.
Okay, so Anneli, do not turn off your mic because I'm coming right back to you. So we've been wanting to hear, we've actually heard information on what entrepreneurs could do. I actually want to hear from entrepreneurs now. So I specifically am coming to you because I've actually had the pleasure of watching Anneli's journey from soup to nuts. This is a high-powered person. If she has not introduced herself, she's put together some amazing assets in the tech space in Wall Street. So I'm definitely interested to hear more. As an entrepreneur in the climate fintech space, what inspired you to create the green finance marketplace? And can you share some of the key resourcing challenges faced by those entering this sector and how you overcame them?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Ani, which allows me to share a bit about myself. So in my past life, like Karen, I'm also South African, but about 10 years ago now, when Barclays concluded the share swap agreement that allowed them to buy all of more of ABSA and allowed ABSA, the Barclays Africa Group, to finally be housed as one banking group. That allowed me to leave South Africa and move to Tanzania, Ghana, and then ultimately the Seychelles, where I had the opportunity to be involved in the Debt for Nature swap, and then what would become the world's first blue bond. And right from the moment the Nature Conservancy walked into my office and explained that it was Leonardo DiCaprio and this group of private investors that were willing to refinance the government of the Seychelles in order for the difference between the old financing rate and the new financing rate to be allocated to ocean and climate-focused businesses, I immediately thought, okay, I know enough about the financial markets and have been driving this in different countries, but there's something here, there's a lever, there's a moment in finance that's changing, in that the idea of sustainability or climate impact was finally something that we were thinking of pricing into transactions, which means it would impact the cost of capital. So sitting there in my chair as a treasurer, I immediately recognized that there are so many businesses on the continent that are building resilience, that are doing good for sustainability. And if we could use that language of sustainability and resilience to make them more visible, we could accelerate the flow of capital to those businesses. So it was the recognition that we have well-developed and transfer pricing systems that allow us to price credit. But here's something that was new that we could develop that would allow bankers to see transactions beyond the typical ones and zeros and start to incorporate this lens of what is the use of proceeds and how does this money actually maximize sustainability, not just economically, but also in the communities that they operate in. So it was very real. And that's what excited me, that there was certainly, as I sat around the rest of the C-suite and engaged my colleagues at a group level and in the UK, in the ordinary business of banking, there wasn't enough time to develop the sorts of tools that I thought could help us build this capability. And I was sufficiently satisfied that my experience across various countries almost nominated me to step back and start that part of the adventure. Was your second part of the question spoke to challenges?
Yes.
I think very much, tell me?
No, go ahead, you were fine.
I think the challenges are not particularly unique. The challenges we've faced are faced by entrepreneurs all around the world, particularly female entrepreneurs, African entrepreneurs in terms of access to capital. I was stepping off from being very actively involved in the financial markets and wanting to build a conduit that would not only serve the banks and financial institutions that I understood, but go further in bridging the gap that we see now between traditional finance and communities. And part of the challenges in doing that is, you have a very big vision, and it's all of the usual of how do you get people to believe in you, how do you build the plan, how do you get the capital, although I know that our conversation today has been about all sorts of different types of resources and how we put those to work effectively.
Thank you for answering that question. Some of the things that you brought up and challenges in the entrepreneurship space is just getting the finance sector with the VCs and all to talk the same language. I find as we're putting together a policy for climate change currently, there's some of the same issues that not only entrepreneurs face, but also on the VC side. It's a matter of connecting with the right programs, with the right people in order to make those policies make sense. Otherwise, it won't make sense and doesn't support anyone. So thank you for that comment. Dr. Karen, on to you next. What innovative funding and resource management approaches have you seen in your work that could be applied to the African context?
Thanks, Annie. It's hard to follow Anela in the world's first blue bond, which sounds really impressive. So I would just like to probably position my work a bit because I bring more of a contextual lens rather than an impact investing lens. And increasingly am frustrated with how we understand how we resource entrepreneurship and particularly social entrepreneurship and how we mirror Western perspectives, assuming that that's what we need. And so if I can take just a few steps back, because Anela has really touched on it perfectly by saying we need to bridge that gap between traditional, our mainstream, more Western understanding of what the financial system looks like and actually have more confidence in appreciating what our African investments look like and our community funding models. And I think we also have to appreciate that these have been delegitimized over decades, if not centuries, as being insignificant and invisible. And yet many of the earlier speakers have spoken about the funding that we get from, I heard the phrase earlier, friends, fools, and families. And I'm like, they're not fools, they're our friends. And there are families, but our communities are a really strong source of resourcing for entrepreneurs, but particularly for social entrepreneurship, because it is so community-centered and people first. You know, this is a human approach to entrepreneurship. So I'd like to put a call out to the folk here to say, just quickly in the chat, let me know how big are your social enterprises? Like, how many people do you employ, for example? Just give us a quick sense as to how big you are. Are you based in a community? Do you see yourself as a big or a small social enterprise? Because I think it'll be really helpful for this discussion, because so much of how we resource the enterprise is dependent on those characteristics of the enterprise. So I'm going to talk not so much to new innovative funding models. I don't want to disappoint Annie, but rather to what we saw in South Africa when we developed the social and solidarity economy policy, which is when we asked people what resourcing they needed, what actually came back. We asked the question in quite an unusual way, because if you ask people what they need, they were often, the default response is funding and financing. We asked folk, what would you ask the president if you had a meeting with him and you know he could give you anything, what was the response? And once we analyzed that, we came back with a helpful ecosystem. And within this helpful ecosystem, resources is not just financial. It's the partnerships with government to use empty buildings for advice centers, for example, or to co-subsidize fencing for creches and communities. So I think we can be more innovative in how we approach what we see as innovative finance. It's not just the impact investing model. I appreciate we're short on time, so I won't take up too much time. And then the second point is, I'm busy working with the ILO, and I would encourage folk on this call to have a look at the African Union strategy document. I've seen a lot of discussion today about the need for policy, but I think we also need to question why we're asking for policy and what the immediate response is that we expect from policy. And I think what we want is legitimacy. We want to legitimize the environment we work in, and I think we need to think more creatively about how we do that. And when we look at where financing comes for social enterprises across the continents, this study is Zambia, Kenya, Nigeria, Madagascar, DRC, and Egypt. So really lovely mix of different country contexts. Excuse me, we do see the power of financial cooperatives coming through and just how these are growing in all the countries of study. Why? It's because the cooperatives are community-based and are able to offer the nuanced financing that small micro-organizations need that traditional mainstream financing services don't offer. So I would just like to, I think we can all talk about this for forever, but I would just like to really just leave everybody with a couple of things, is challenge the Western paradigm. Don't think that you have to look like the social enterprises that are championed by Ashoka and Skoll and the Schwab Foundation, for example. Nothing wrong with those organizations, but they're the 1% of the 1%. be creative in how we view what resourcing is, and look locally when we try to seek innovative funding and financing examples. I hope that's a quick deep dive.
Yes, that was. Thank you. That was very, I love your key points that you made. One of the things that I paid very close attention to, even in the work that we've done on the continent, is letting people know that you can get your ideas from wherever you want to in the world. That's fine. Ideas can travel. However, implementing and the concept of how you put it together must match your demographics and the people in which will buy your products or who you cater to. And that world is totally different than any Western front. If you're currently living over China, if you're currently living in Kenya, if you're current wherever. Your business model should match the environment in which you're coming from, because ultimately from that solution is probably a solution to many communities. So don't use that as the model if you can, as much as you can. So onwards, Dr. Adesu, unto you. What role do academic institutions play in supporting African social enterprises, particularly in resource management and impact assessment?
Thank you, Ani. It's a very interesting panel. Very happy to be here. So the role of universities is being questioned now in the West, in part because of artificial intelligence. Our students probably are not going to be demanded in 3-4 years, in part because intelligence is being commodified. And I think that question has been there for a long time in Africa. So I teach in Ethiopia and Addis Ababa University in South Africa as well, at the University of Cape Town. And one of the things I learned there is that the graduate unemployment rate is very high. In South Africa, it's more than one-third of the graduates do not find a job. In Ethiopia, it could be up to 58%. So I think our universities have been designed from the beginning to produce potential employees for large companies. But as earlier mentioned, the number of large companies in Africa is not really that much. Even in the West, in Canada, for example, only 1% of the total companies are employees more than 500. So what should we do is prepare the next generation to produce their own jobs, to create employment opportunities through entrepreneurship. And that has not been the case for a long, long time. So when I studied in Ethiopia 15, 20 years ago, entrepreneurship programs were not available. Now I think it's more common, but social entrepreneurship is not that common also. And it's not just creating entrepreneurship, but also making it localized and contextually dependent as well. So Karen mentioned that many of our concepts are borrowed. There is a huge Western influence. Nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, social entrepreneurship should not be a new concept in Africa. There are many similar concepts at a local level. So the question is, make it local, use local concepts and integrate Western concepts and ideas with local ones as well. So another thing African universities could do is build bridges and links between the community and the universities. Universities often operate as ivory towers, people doing research and teaching in isolation from the communities. But what could be done is actually a greater engagement. African universities have space. Space is a huge problem in many large cities in Africa. They could use their buildings to for entrepreneurship, working spaces, accelerators and incubators. They could provide a lot of support for local enterprises and bring the community into the university and vice versa. And that way build an ecosystem. There are some very good examples in Kenya, for example. I think the University of Nairobi is very famous for its hub. In the University of Lagos, I heard that they have also the co-creation hub. In South Africa, where I was visiting last year, the University of Cape Town at the Berta Center, which is working very closely with local entrepreneurs to develop their talent and also prepare them for the job market and job creation as well. I can add one last point. Many of you are here from Western countries. Until recently, for example, in the West, there was a lot of cheap capital, and many African businesses are capital hungry. But then the bridging is a problem. So I think African universities could serve as intermediaries to connect Western capital providers with local entrepreneurs who can produce, who can be high growth ventures. And likewise, also in the technology space, human capital programming, for example, is highly demanded skill, and Africans are producing hundreds of thousands of highly qualified IT experts. This is a job that can be done remotely, and African universities can do a lot of a job to bridge Western service seekers with service providers in Africa. So intermediation is another thing that African universities could do as well. So I know time is short. I'll stop here and come back to a few issues later as well.
Awesome, thank you so much. University partnerships, I think people see them as, oh, I don't attend it. I probably won't go to them necessarily unless there's something going on, not knowing that these programs are really open to all. And if there's participation or collaboration possibilities, the university is always open to it. So always make sure you tap into your university resources. They are a great, great place for direction and resource. And last but not least, Tiza, we have you. So how has the landscape for social enterprises in Ethiopia evolved over the past few years, especially regarding resource mobilization and sustainability?
Thank you. Very, very interesting panel. Yeah, it's the landscape, the ecosystem, especially around funding, has been evolving. I think when I first got into the space, there was, a lot of funding around, I feel like thematic funding around health, environment, not as much education and this kind of things. There are lots of incubators, accelerators, so a lot of money kind of went through intermediaries, then to the social enterprises. And then you see like different international development organizations also kind of being part of that, embassies being part of that as well. And then there was the years 2020, COVID, and for us in Ethiopia soon after the Tigray war, the war in the north of Ethiopia, that kind of led to capital flight. So a lot of partners that were funding social entrepreneurs on the ground left or had stopped programs until there was more or less stability in the country. Then now, post that, and now post the country kind of opening up in different ways, there's been more organizations kind of interested in looking at the funding ecosystem within the social enterprise ecosystem within Ethiopia. So there's lots of international development organizations. We also have now with the AU policy that Dr. Kerry mentioned, I feel like lots of other funders are looking at Ethiopia as well. I know like venture philanthropy, there are different organizations who are looking at setting up offices in Ethiopia. So it's kind of it's a shifting ecosystem. It's quite volatile, but it's a shifting ecosystem. But it is consolidating in one way or another, in terms of there is increased visibility. When we started off, there was not really any. There was no consolidation of the ecosystem. So Social Enterprise Ethiopia really coming together, co-founded by all social entrepreneurs. We all have social enterprises as well, being co-founded by people on the ground, bringing in other people who are also on the ground, and then creating a channel whereby we can also lobby for policy, talk to the Ethiopian government, talk to funders, provide capacity building so funders also feel like these organizations are investment ready. So the ecosystem has been growing in many different ways.
That's amazing and so good to hear. Okay, so what we're going to do now, in the interest of time, is that I'm going to start to ask questions that were submitted from participants or people that wanted to make sure their voice was heard, instead of sticking to our panel. So these are pre-sent in questions, as most of you know. So I'm just going to ask, and feel free to jump in and answer. So one of the first questions is how to find and manage resources in our line of services. How could you respond to the audience? How could they manage resources in their line of services? And we could kind of go into a general. So let's choose whatever specific areas of interest or areas of knowledge that you know, and please speak to that. I'll start with you, Nelly, because you're an entrepreneur, so I'll probably always bounce to you.
Yes, thank you for inviting me back. And I think I've just been playing back since the morning, listening to everyone. We've spoken a lot about funding, but we haven't really spoken a lot about the spectrum of capital, right? That there's different types of funding for different types of businesses. And also, as we think about ourselves as social entrepreneurs or in this room, we're not, something else that I'm realizing hasn't really come up is also to the fact that you're framed as social entrepreneurs, really your businesses are building some of this infrastructure that we need to have stronger conduits to build resilience and direct change at a community level. We spoke about sort of monitoring and evaluation and metrics, but coming at it from a green finance lens and sort of the questions that I answer speaking to businesses on the ground seeking capital or development finance institutions is what does every social entrepreneur or social business on the ground have in place to how do we actually graduate up the spectrum of capital, from grants to commercial funding to the bigger checks? Because on the other hand, you have organizations that want to drive large-scale programs, but they can't drive large-scale programs with small organizations. So I think that was just something that came to me as I was listening to the other panelists in the session of, even as we start small, in my mind, what I always say to people, all finance is green finance. You just have sectors of the economy that haven't recognized it yet. And for social businesses, I think it's also the same reflection of, exactly as Willem and others have said, how does your business drive value? How are we tracking that? And what are the relationships you're creating with the next piece of the monkey bar that's going to help you grow to the next level? So I think it does start with that ecosystem map, and also a recognition that the business you're building is also, you're building it to grow and contribute to the system so that the system is more robust, so that we can drive change. And that's where the social aspect of social entrepreneurship comes from, because all businesses are social businesses and all businesses hope to have a community impact. So I'd start with that mapping of who are we, who can we actually have working relationships with while we're small, and then what are we tracking and how are we graduating our small business up the spectrum of capital to partner with bigger organizations to create more of the impact that we're chasing.
Okay, that is a great point. You mentioned something very key. It's great that we're building these, but then there's access to just having people. There's people, people issues. So maybe one other panelist would like to speak on how do you manage your organization with limited resources? We all have a mission. We all are seeing this goal, and we're envisioning, we're going to raise money and do all these wonderful things, but there's only one of you. So let's speak to that first, because we have a lot of people here. There's only one of. What did you do? And what if maybe you've mentored someone and they've created a solution? How did they do it? So I'd like one of the panelists to feel free to jump in and answer that question.
Yeah, I can jump in. I'm not an entrepreneur myself, but I have worked with entrepreneurs a lot. I think one of the challenges I see is everyone trying to take advantage of the standard practices. Impact funding, for example, is a big thing. And in Colombia, many of the entrepreneurs we interviewed, everyone is trying to get access to Acumen and other major impact funders. But I think it's very valuable to consider alternative new sources as well. P2P lending, for example, is growing in the West. You do not need as much of credit history and a profile to get funding. Crowdfunding is also a big platform in South Africa. There's a major one called Tunda Fund. And I think in many countries also it's coming up. So for entrepreneurs who have a very good business plan but are struggling to come up with short-term financing, I think they could consider alternatives, of course, apart from family and friends as well.
Okay, thank you so much. That is pretty much all the time that we have. I love what Karen just said in the chat, which is that the reality is by human nature, we're always wanting, we're always in a state of I need. So I think that that's just long term, but definitely love the point that she made. We will never have enough resources to do what we want to do. It just is a matter of you just building. And I've heard one of the speakers say that. So I just want to thank everyone for joining our session. Thank you for having me. I now run to my next session. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Look us up at African Diaspora Network, and hopefully we can partner or work together soon. Everyone have a beautiful day.
Wow, thank you so much, Annie. Wow, what a wonderful moderation. I'm glad you stayed till the end because I don't think I would have done it as you've done it. So fantastic, moderating the conversation. Thank you. Have a lovely day at your event. Yeah. And thank you to the panelists. Woof. I think what a way to end it. What a way to end day one of this summit. I got lost in the conversation really because there was so much gems in there that I couldn't really keep up. But thank you so much, Karen, Adisu, Annalie. Great insights that has been shared. I'm not sure. Should we allow people in the room? We still have about 35 people listening, which is good. Especially we've been on for about 3 hours now. It's really good from that perspective. People participants, it's a chance for you to still raise some more questions that you might have about some of the key points that has been shared by our panelists. They are still here for a few more minutes. Is anybody in the room willing to ask a question? You can let us know in the chat. Or you can raise your hand up and we can unmute you as well. So while waiting for people to sort of gather their thought, I think what I picked from some of the points that you've made, like I said, there were so many gems being shared that I couldn't really keep up with the points. I'm glad we're recording this so we can share this later. But I think this all speaks to the main point that social entrepreneurs at whatever level or whatever scale they are. Okay, good. We have a hand up now in a second. So we need to diversify the way they generate income or the way they source for funding to be able to carry on their impact. There's a need there for diversification. Just looking for funding alone can be enough. I mean, while that is good in itself, but also opening up room for things like other innovative form of financing, like Adisu was mentioning, crowdfunding there, PMP, P2P lending, and all other different forms of financing, which I think I find very, very, very useful. I mean, I just wanted to make a comment. It's not a question. So I'm just going to go to the question there from Brian. Brian Tumwesige. Let's bring you in. Can we unmute Brian, please? Allowed to talk. Brian, can you try to unmute yourself now?
Thank you so much.
All right, great.
Thank you so much for the insights and the knowledge shared. Karen shared about something that I've been struggling with a bit, looking within to raise resources for the work. Like where we don't have to look for funding for here, there, and there, like we look, but if we can sustainably look within and create initiatives and drive ways of raising revenue to run the organization, to run social enterprises, to run the kind of work we're doing. Is it possible if you could share maybe, are there like models you've interacted with or any material that could guide, that could maybe structure something in that line? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a tough one, Brian, to finish off with. I think, as you've heard through the day, it's not a one size fits all magic wand solution, but I think what we do need to do is to be more confident to look inwardly and locally for support, and to be more imaginative in understanding what it is that our organizations need to first stabilize, and then, as Jonas was saying earlier, to be sustainable. I think we generally operate in unstable environments. I think that's for social enterprises globally, just because you are on the frontier of entrepreneurship, you're doing things that others haven't. And as I said earlier, you're in a space of infinite need. There will always be more demand for the service that you can provide. So you will always feel like you never have enough. So I suppose the first thing is the managerial question that was being asked earlier, is be very clear in terms of what the services are that you can provide, and be very comfortable with the cultural relationships, or the cultural shaping of what your organization looks like. And I suppose what I'm trying to encourage is that we just need to see the Ashoka model as being the 1% of the 1%, and not something that we should emulate. And then when we do that, the research that we see in South Africa, and certainly coming through from those 6 African countries that we've been looking at in quite a lot of detail, what's really interesting there is the colonial influences. So never underestimate just how deep those colonial influences are in terms of framing our policy systems and our legal frameworks. And so to really look to our local cultures as a resource source. So that's religious funding coming through religious institutions, tribal structures, but not just funding. And I'll close saying this because I appreciate time is short. But how can we share? How can we collaborate? How can we go back to those solidarity roots that we know are very intrinsic to African culture? And I think we need to, this is a big thing for me to say, and it's got a lot of consequence to it, but I think we need to be more comfortable with that, and to really see that as opportunity. And that's a framing. It's not an answer, I'm sorry. But hopefully it's a legitimacy to be more comfortable in how we strengthen our solidarity in terms of resourcing our social work.
Right. Thank you so much, Karen. Brian, I believe that probably answers your question. If not, okay, great. Thank you. It is helpful. Right. So thank you very much. I think that was very useful. As you were speaking also, I made a comment earlier, but also as you were speaking about, especially because of the theme of this particular discussion, there is one thing that I'm not sure, maybe again, I missed it. Maybe it has been mentioned, but it's about the ecosystem around social entrepreneurship in Africa itself needs to be sustained. And I really don't think I don't know if we've spoken to that. How do we actually sustain the ecosystem itself? Because even you see a lot of ecosystem actors, like a lot of networks being set up, so many of them on the African continent, so many of them are partners with us on this summit. There are also bigger networks like the Catalyst 2030 and all other networks as well. But even these networks themselves, right, struggle in terms of actually how do they keep sustaining that particular network, because a lot of the models and the networks barely works in terms of membership models, making sure people pay for membership to be a part of a particular network. That hardly works. So you kind of find some of these networks also stuck with looking for external financing to keep it going. Do anybody want to speak to that? Like, how do we actually sustain networks that sustains, that has a key role as well to play in sustaining these enterprises? Anybody wants to?
Yeah, I'll jump in with that question. No, absolutely. I think definitely there are challenges in networks all over the continent, all over the world, really. I think, social enterprises, as we know, are multisectoral in nature. You find yourself that not only are they multisectorals, like in that scenario, you have a multiplicity of stakeholders to answer to. So I think that also means that there will be challenges in how you sustain, in the sense that they will be, different stakeholders that you must answer to. So I feel like the resource mix must also reflect that, in that one has to, of course, be possibly generating their own revenue, could be services they provide. In our case, we provide services. We provide different capacity building programs, not just to our members, but to other people who may be interested. In our resource mix is also grant funding, in our resource mix is also membership fees. So there is not really one size fits all, as you said, because social enterprise is really a very contextually rooted phenomenon. So therefore, we're not able to say like in Ethiopia this works, so it's going to work in Kenya, or it's going to work in Zambia, or it's going to work in South Africa. I think the most important thing is to understand what works within my context. What kind of resources do I have within my context? What kind of partnerships can I leverage in my context? And based on that, create structures, create opportunities for you to sustain. And that may look different in Kenya, in Ethiopia, and South Africa. So it's really about understanding what's happening in your context and building from that. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much. That's very important. It always has to be contextually driven strategies. So very useful. Anybody want to? Yeah, Anneli, do you want to comment?
If I could just have a bite of the apple there as well. I appreciate Tizita's contribution and Karen's as well. And I think it ties back to a question that was asked at the start of the day, right? Around, how do we actually move to the next level when the ecosystem is dependent on international funding? For me, it goes back to, we have to design our social impact ecosystems with a very clear objective of, getting your market or your community to a point of resilience, which for me necessarily has to do with ultimately stewarding whatever your initiative is to a point where there are more players in the market. There are more success stories that come back and say, this was my conduit, and can actually recommend you and recommend what you do to other people. Because if we're so often, Willem spoke to incubation constipation, right? If organizations that want to drive impact are navel gazing and have a plan to infinity around how they will source funding to drive their 12-step program, as opposed to absolute obsessive focus on how are people coming out on the other side of this? How are the people that come out on the other side of our program part of helping us build this? Then we're actually, we're growing the market and getting more people involved in the game, or the track that we've set up to create this impact. So if the design of what we're trying to do doesn't ultimately see the people that you're out to help as also empowerers and helpers and people that go out and grow your mission, then it becomes very difficult to sustain. So I think starting with it in mind that the people you seek to help are ultimately going to be the ones that grow your business or grow your impact, I think can be very rewarding.
Right, that is very, very interesting. Thank you for that very, additional key point there. Yeah, I think there was a research. Well, the paper is still yet to be published, but I call that sort of like making them disciples, where because they went through your particular program or your network, they become disciples for that, and they can speak about it in other circles, and also kind of see it as a way of paying back. Or giving back to your enterprise as well. Yeah, I think that is what you're speaking to there, Anneli. Yeah, very interesting. Thank you very much. Is there any more questions? I think Precious, there is still one more, and then we have to wrap it up because I think our panelists will probably running out of time. Precious, there was one more question. Do you want to ask that question? I think I can find it. What are the most effective strategies for building partnerships and collaborations with government, corporation, and local communities to maximize impact and resource mobilization? I think that's a question for this panel, because we're talking about governments, corporations, local communities, which are all part of an ecosystem around social entrepreneurship. So the question is, what are the most effective strategies for building partnerships and collaborations? I think that's a very crucial question as well. Who wants to take that?
I can jump in really quickly, because I think that's a whole conference in of itself. But I can talk from a policy perspective, in terms of government, a few quick things to remember is politics is highly relational. You're very unlikely to get anything to move unless you know the right people in the right places. And the flip side of that is politics changes. So you can spend 5 years developing the relationship with the right person in the right place, and 5 years later at your next election, they may not be there. And so with the South African Social and Solidarity Economy policy, what we did, the policy ended up on the minister's desk where it gathered dust, but we moved sideways and we operationalized it by setting up what we call the Social Employment Fund. And so even though we don't have a policy, we have a fund. And so I would always have a backup plan when you're dealing with relationships with governments. It's hard. It's hard to predict. So that's just a bit of thought on that.
Thank you. That's very important. Like
add a point on that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's hard work, but I think it's something that we cannot ignore, right? We need to engage government, and because government has resources, but what we need to do is also have enough evidence to convince government. Then sometimes we engage them without solid. Okay. So, and again, in any partnership, you want also to touch the points of interest for the government. If, for instance, government has some areas of interest that also is aligned with what social entrepreneurs are contributing to, and then you have evidence to say, you know what, maybe you want to kind of solve the problem of housing. Look at what social entrepreneurs are doing. These are the evidence. I think then they will be open to talk to you. Okay, so. And sometimes we run the risk to say, oh, government is difficult. Sometimes it's difficult, but we can also find, like Karen said, the good people in the government who want, they are people who kind of have the social entrepreneur's heart in the government. So we need to find those people and be able to engage them.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think we have to bring this session to a close because of time. I mean, we can talk about, like Karen said very rightly there, this could even be a whole summit in itself. So thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Karen. Thank you, Annelie. Thank you, Tizita. I think Dr. Lashti was left. I think so. So thank you all. I think it's an interesting session. I think all participants, look, we still have 32 participants staying, even after almost 3 hours, going to 4 hours now. You should know that is because this is very interesting, an interesting discussion. So thank you so much gems in there, and there will be the recordings from this as well that we will share with participants for them to be able to listen to it at their own pace and time. So thank you so much. Hope we can keep the conversation alive as well post summit. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you to the participants, for those of you that stayed up until this time. I believe you've had a fantastic loaded session, lots for you to go and think about there. And like we have been saying, there will be the recording later that we will of course do what we do, which is sort of edit it so that we can share it, and then we will share it with everybody that is that attended, and also those that registered as well. So thank you so much. Let me walk you through what we have coming tomorrow. So 10 a.m. Is the final day of the summit. Tomorrow is usually the day we do practical stuff. So today we do a lot of talking, and you have a lot of notes that you probably have taken, but tomorrow we engage in the practical stuff, which is we focus it on mainly the development of sustainable business models. Like, how can you develop business models? And one of the things we've heard today as well is that they need to sort of diversify sort of how we generate income. So we're not only looking to generate impact funding or tap into impact funding, but also how can we create business models, income, like William was saying, side businesses, side also that can also support sort of the work, impact work you're doing. So tomorrow is the day for that, where we look into sustainable business models. We're going to do this across 6 locations in Africa, which is interesting. We have interesting partners that are helping us with this, which is amazing. We've never done this before. So it's interesting to actually have this type of partnership that enables us to do this. So if you are in Kenya, there is a location at Tangaza University, Kenya. Dr. Jonas here is part of people helping to organize that, and also Social Enterprise Kenya helping to organize that. So you can go there to get your business model issue or questions sorted out for you. If you're in Tunisia, we have Sausin here, who is also organizing a business model masterclass there. So get in touch with Sausin, especially if you speak French. Apologies that we are not interpreting in French today, but if you're French speaking, you can visit Saucine, and she will she has a session there on business model that you can go to get your questions answered there. But also we have Cote d'Ivoire. Yeah, we have Cote d'Ivoire. We have Abuja, of course. We have Abuja, which Rita is coordinating. Amazing speakers lined up there. So if you're in Nigeria, if you can make it to Abuja, there's a fantastic session going on at the American corner there. We have Johannesburg as well. We have Joburg in South Africa, which Willem, if you listen to Willem today and you like his session, he will be coordinating the, how do you set up this site also that he's talking about. He's going to be walking you through that in Joburg. We have Makers Valley partnering with us on that there. So I hope I've not missed out anyone. Zambia. Chembo, of course. Chembo is organizing a masterclass in Zambia, of course. Business model masterclass, drawing from my experience. Herself and Jane has been doing this for like 10 years or so. So she will be drawing on her experience to share with you as well in Zambia. So if you're in Zambia, make it to the address in Chembo. We will share these addresses as well with all attendees later. So yes, that's day 2 tomorrow. But before the masterclasses, 10 a.m. we are here back on this same link for the Impact Prize, Sustaining Impact Prize. This is our inaugural edition. We have a funder who have given us a small pot of money for us to give to the first 3 that have impressive presentation. So we'll be listening to their presentations tomorrow. We have 5 finalists. If you want to participate in that, you're just interested in the presentations, do log in 10 a.m. tomorrow for the Impact Prize. It's going to be for an hour, and then you can go to your respective masterclasses. There's also a virtual masterclass. If you can't make it to the physical locations, we have a virtual masterclass. That's, I will be there moderating that, and we have an incredible speaker, Mr. Ajayi, who is a finance professional and has been in that space for so many years. So you will be facilitating that masterclass virtually tomorrow. So please do make it with us if you can't make it to the physical location. We need to bring the session to a close now. So I'll hand over to Rita. We'll do that. Thank you to the panelists that are here. Thank you, Tizita. Thank you, Dr. Jonas. Thank you, Willem, that are still here. Chembo as well. Okay, I hand over to Rita. And to my team, amazing work. Alex, I can still see you there. Rita, Precious, amazing work. Tomorrow we go again, okay? Over to you, Rita.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I do not need to recap or retreat on anything that has been said. Every one of the speakers spoke and nailed it. In fact, I think it was more like an inspirational or a motivational session whereby every entrepreneur who joined is cautious and to know that innate in us, we have the ability, the substances, the resources needed to fuel our and scale our impact. I want to say again, thank you for being part of this summit. We go again next year. And for now, please kindly fill the feedback form and see you at your different locations tomorrow. If you're in Abuja, I'll be happy and glad to meet you. Thank you and have a wonderful evening. See you again, of course, even virtually via the same link tomorrow. Take care of yourself. Bye.